Also, the market is down. Market's going crazy. It's in the pooper. We'll obviously be talking about that today. And we'll be talking about a lot of other things that are happening as well. There's a DDoS attack potentially on Twitter. We'll obviously be talking about the Columbia University situation, which is, I think, I mean, we're there. We've been there. But this is full tilt fascist behavior. And obviously, there's, it must be talked about. But before people go, oh my God, like fascism has been here already, Hassan. Like, I know, dude. I know. Okay. This is a new level, though. They are definitely leveling it up. They are definitely leveling it up. So we'll talk about that. Sam Cedar on Jubilee. Obviously, that's been all over my Twitter, and I've been avoiding it like spoilers for a TV show, basically, because I want to watch it with fresh eyes. So that's something that I'm excited to watch. And we'll also obviously talk about the insanity that's happening right now with the White House as well. Trump admin moves to denaturalize green card holder Columbia student activist for Israel. American citizens are literally less valuable. Okay? American citizens are less valuable to this administration than Israel's feelings. I need you to understand. Stock market crashing. There's just everything sucks. Everything sucks, and this government is going to keep doing things. Everything sucks, and this government is going to keep doing awful things over and over again without learning any lessons, I think. So that's where we're at. Also, yeah, Canada Liberal Party. That we could talk about that as well. I mean, there's just so much to cover. I'm just getting in it. I'm just getting into it. Get in now. It's Monday Newsday. Can you stare into my soul? Sure. Show.tv/Hasanabi. Do we have a blast off meme or not? My conservative mom just told me you didn't know. My conservative mom just told me, did you know black people are actually overrepresented in our federal government? Lamau. Nice. Is that why they're trying to fire black people from the federal government? Is that what's going on? What is this? Misgive. Hassan, I fucking hate Trump. Hassan, I fucking hate Trump so much. Hassan, Trump is the worst president in the world. I fucking hate him. I mean, there's been worse presidents, for sure. There's been worse presidents in America. I would still say George W. Bush was worse than Trump, but Trump is getting up there, I think. I think Trump is certainly getting up there. It's pretty impressive to be worse than George W. Bush. We'll see where he goes. I mean, we'll see where he goes from here on out. But I'm down so much money. Oh, you're mad because he's cooking you in the stock market. Yeah, those are considerations I do not have. I don't know anything about stonks, and I don't really care about it that much. But yeah, I mean, if rich people get mad, if Trump is cooking rich people, then, his time on this earth is not long. You feel me? Because like a guy like Misgive is a perfect demonstration of a person who just doesn't normally care about politics all that much. You know what I mean? But he cares about his money. He cares about his stocks. And if his stonks are not doing well, all of a sudden he's like, what the hell is this? That's the whole point, right? You came in here to fix the stonks, to make the stocks go up. That's your job. Get to work, rich man. When the line goes down, it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Line's not supposed to go down. It's supposed to go up. But, not financial advice or whatever, but, you got to buy the dip, right, guys? Anyway, I don't know anything. Don't listen to me. What's awful is all of us have small amount of retirement. We have crashing to zero because we're all on 401ks. We're lucky enough to have one. I know. I mean, it's just like, I don't know where to begin in terms of like Donald Trump being horrible. Okay. Misgive has made the best investment he could ever make, though, which is subscribing to me for $6 or for free with the Twitch Prime. You can do either or. Okay. You can also get gifted a sub if you're lucky. Congratulations to Misgive for subscribing. In spite of the fact that his stocks are not doing well, he still apparently has enough disposable income to be able to make the greatest investment of all time, which is to subscribe to me. Hold on one second. That's the shirt, by the way. Did you say oppa? I did. Turkish people say hoppa. If you tell me not to listen to you, then do I not listen to you by listening to you? Holy conundrum. I mean, listen to me on politics. Don't listen to me on freaking, I don't know. Make it a baby tea. So I'm not doing baby teas this time, but we do have girl teas coming out. A lot of you have been complaining about girl teas, not having girl teas. So we heard you. We have some teas for the girly pops as well. Like you can get a girl size as well. And then maybe we can do baby teas next line. Baby teas and baby pink. What about kids? You read my mind. No, when I say baby tees, that's not for like actual babies. It just is a style of t-shirt. It's not literally for I don't think it's for babies. Are babies supposed to wear baby tees? No, right? Like it just means like, it's like a crop top, all right? That's what it is. Please, I need a onesie. Okay, you are literally not a baby. I can't get you a onesie. We're not doing a onesie merch. If anything, like I've been meaning to do like something cool, something different. Problem is, like, obviously we're very limited in what we can manufacture with union made, American made products. They just simply don't make a lot of stuff beyond what you see. So I've thought about working with a non-union shop potentially. Still America made, obviously, but that's the situation. But we'll see what happens. We'll see where we like if there is. I'm working on it. I've said this before. If there's like a cool thing that we do, like it'll still be the bulk of the stuff, the t-shirts and whatnot will obviously still be unions, but. Bro, I would turn in my toddlers to the youngest Hasanabi heads. What would be the Hassan meets is my idea. Do you F with it? Do you fuck with it? Yeah, I do. Yeah, Hassan meets. What is this? You and Nev could do this in front of 10K people for charity? I don't know what this means. It's just me and nephew shooting 3-pointers. Don't do it unless it's extremely cool. Fuck non-unions. Okay, everybody calm your goddamn titties. I haven't even done it. I'm saying, like, I might work with a local manufacturer potentially. If we were to do something that I hate this fucking community sometimes. It's like it's literally they're doing thought crimes already. God, it's brother. There is no union shop that does manufacturing for, like, I don't know, jewelry, for example, okay, at the level of inventory that we need, because you guys buy too much, okay? So if that's the case, like, and if I were to do jewelry, for example, I might have to work with an American shop that isn't unionized. That's it. That's all I'm saying, but I'm not even doing that yet. I haven't done it. Everything is still American made, union made, okay? Calm the fuck down. I'm saying that if there was ever an opportunity for something cool that beyond like t-shirts and long sleeves and things like that we put out all the time, you know, we might do it just to do like a one-off. At what point do you look at your demand and limited union supply considering starting your own printing co-op? I don't mean this in a scoldy way. I was just curious. No, it's something that I've put zero thought into because I would rather never make fucking merchandise ever again than to start my own garment manufacturing shop. That is an entirely separate world. That is something that would take a shit ton of time and effort and knowledge. These are not things that I know. These are not things that I'm good at. I'm not good at being a boss, okay? Which is precisely the reason why I will not be doing that, okay? I will never do that. That is craziness. All of these other content creators that do stuff like that do not have the same moral considerations. Not to say that they are immoral in general. I'm just saying that their moral considerations are different than mine. Okay? That's it. Like content creators who are capable of setting up manufacturing facilities and whatnot are able to do so because they are able to, you know, they work with overseas manufacturing and they have people that they hire to like handle all this stuff. I'm not going to be able to do that on my own. It's like demanding that I own a factory. If it's a unionized co-op model, it could be your way of changing the systems. Brother, Megaphonics, do you understand the level of time consideration, like the time and effort that takes to build not just like a fucking unionized co-op model, but just like any? Like, do you? Oh my lord, y'all are crazy. You need to ignore chat sometimes. Favorite it app. Thank you for the 69 gift of subs. Yeah, just build a factory. Just purchase a factory, build it, make it a cooperative. Like I'm not saying it's impossible to do. It certainly is possible. But if I were to do it, I would have to stop everything else that I'm doing and just only do that. You know what I mean? I would have to stop to become a titan of industry. I would have to literally drop everything that I've done thus far and only focus on that. It's a possibility. People can do it. I'm just saying that I'm not very good at that. So obviously I'm going to continue doing what I'm good at, which is this. That would be some pretty sick IRL content. Okay, guys, you don't know anything about content creation. Okay. I'm sorry. No, it wouldn't. No, dude, it would not. Okay. You're just fucking wrong. All right. I literally, yo, it would be so sick if you went to the factory and you streamed the process of you doing paperwork and managing people. That would be so sick. I would watch the heck out of that. No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't even watch that if it was like in a video format on YouTube. And I'll tell you why I know. Because there's plenty of fucking videos like that on YouTube right now. And I'm certain that you haven't watched a single one of them. At most, you'll watch one TikTok from a Chinese factory talking about how like they are the #1 at industrial glycogen or whatever. And that's it. All right. You underestimate our artistic powers. No, I just know that that's not good content. I know what good content is. I think I have a pretty decent nose for what is good content as far as making something that is otherwise considered very boring or maybe even hard to grasp as palatable as possible. I do that every day. I do that for 8 to 10 hours every single day, as a matter of fact. And that's why I do what I do. I know what's good in this field, in this very specific, very niche field. You know, I am going to keep doing that. All right. So we're obviously going to get to what the hell is going on with the Trump administration. We're going to talk about Khalil, the Columbia University student that is, that story is the main story for today. Hex Babe, thank you for the 20 gifted subs. I think it's horrifying. It's absolutely horrifying that the Trump administration that signaled that they would do such a thing, which is the denaturalization potentially of people with citizenship, people with like proper paperwork, are doing that at the behest of Israel. And it is shocking because it's like a very similar McCarthyist rule that unironically was used against Jewish socialists and communists quite frequently. And now it's like being used against people who speak out against Israel. And you see like Jewish and pro-Israel organizations just like championing this. And it's really gross. It's very scary. It's very bad. We're obviously going to talk about all of that. But let's start with Elon Musk revealing that X is under a massive cyber.
Hey, this just in, John, if you're having issues on X today, perhaps you are at home. I certainly have been today. Apparently there is an outage, and Elon Musk now says that a foreign actor might be responsible for this. This is what he wrote. He says still is a massive cyber attack against X. We get attacked every day, but this was done with a lot of resources, either a large coordinated group and or a country is involved. So some serious allegations.
What's really crazy about this, I think, is that remember how I talked about liberal run Twitter versus Elon run Twitter and the significant differences between the two, and how liberal run Twitter wasn't great. Maybe there was some bloat. There wasn't the best moderation, but at least it like kind of worked. Versus Elon run Twitter on its bare bones, does not work at all, running on a skeleton crew. And how I always used to use that as an analogy for what happens when the Democrats run the country versus when the Republicans run the country. As you guys know, I'm not exactly the biggest fan of the Democratic Party, right? That much is clear. I am very critical of the Democratic Party, as a matter of fact, on a lot of issues, especially when it comes to foreign policy and even on domestic affairs. Having said that, while the Democrats also suck, at least there was a degree of competence within the federal government, within the way things work. Whereas when Republicans come in charge, they basically break everything. They're like, no, we have no care or consideration for the welfare of American citizens. We're just going to break it. We're going to break it. We're going to take a hammer and just like start slamming it on the federal government, the administrative state, and we're going to pick apart the scraps and strip it, basically engage in copper stripping to the best of our ability, like a bunch of crackheads, and then, steal what remains of the federal resources at the behest of the wealthy. Why am I talking about this analog, though? Because if under Elon Musk's leadership, if Twitter is constantly breaking all the goddamn time, shouldn't you be a little worried that this guy is now in charge of the administrative state? Like, in a very meaningful way. Shouldn't that be a point of concern? That's the way I look at it. I'm like, well, this guy seems to not do a good job, okay? And it's weird to me that him not doing a good job at Twitter was that paired up with $100 million in donations to the Trump campaign was good enough for the Trump administration to go, hey, you know how you fuck Twitter up? We want you to do that to the federal government. I don't know. I'm a little worried. That's just me. If they can do this to Twitter, perhaps what kind of cool things can happen at the federal government? Because the reality is, I do not have any confidence in Elon Musk. Is that simple? I do not have any confidence whatsoever in Elon Musk. I don't have any confidence in his leadership skills. I do not think that he is an intelligent person. I think he's a charlatan who has failed upwards. And I think that while massive cyber attacks do happen, I think his administrative and managerial skills certainly play a role in these sorts of things that happen frequently, being far more impactful than they should be. Okay. All right. Hold on. Anecdotally, most Teslas I saw while walking around this weekend had posts on them with Elon doing the salute and saying to sell their cars or massive key scratches on the body. But yeah, Elon dick riders are losing their patience, says Demasius. It's true. Look at that. I think I'd rather be woke than broke. Turns out it was DEI or die. A lot of people kept saying, oh, it's DEI equals die. No, it's DEI or die, okay? That's what it is, baby. That's what it is. That's what's going on. It took them, being in the red for a couple months to finally come to that conclusion. But if you got Elon dick rider saying stuff like that, I'd rather be woke than broke, then god damn, dude. God damn. Anyway.
Allegations there from the owner of X. Musk will be on Fox Business later on this afternoon with Larry Kudlow, hopefully with an update on what is happening there.
Well, that explains why my Twitter or my X wasn't working very well earlier today.
Israel has cut off electricity to Gaza. This affects the drinking water for the area. Chief National Correspondent Matt Gutman is in Tel Aviv. Good morning, Matt.
We'll talk about this in a second. We'll get to this in a moment. Obviously, before we talk about like Israel doing Israel shit once again, they hit the genocide, do more genocide button again. Okay, they've decided it's time to do more genocide again. It's time to do more Israel shit again. Shutting off power to Gaza, impacting the drinking water in the area, and also shutting off last week humanitarian aid from going in as well. Israel's back at it again, doing the things that it was doing, surely for self-defense, of course. I mean, it's always self-defense. When is it not, Putting on shirts like you got 126 on the TISM test, positive and amicable. Wait, what? Did I put the shirt on weird too? Like, what's happening? Wait, even the way I put my shirt on, you got issues with? It's crazy. What should I tell my younger family members who are on visas, green cards, and who want to still be a part of Free Palestine movements? I don't want them to stop, obviously, but I don't want them to get deported. I will talk about that in a second. But this is something that is highly illegal. What the federal government is doing right now is highly illegal, and I'll tell you all about it in a moment. But for the time being, let's continue talking about Israel doing Israel things in Gaza.
Hey, good morning, George. That's right. Israel cutting off power to the lone facility in Gaza that was still receiving electricity from Israel. It was a desalination plant that we're told provided water to thousands, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians in central Gaza. And of course, this comes a week after Israel cut off the flow of aid and goods into Gaza in order to try to pressure Hamas to continue that first phase of that ceasefire deal, which exchanged hostages for Palestinian prisoners. That as today, negotiations resuming between all the parties in Qatar. But those negotiations are being overshadowed by those side talks that the Trump administration was having directly with Hamas. And this breaks a massive taboo. Never before has any U.S. administration ever spoken directly to Hamas. We understand Israel was not happy about it, but the U.S. envoy who was leading those talks, Adam Bowler, said he wasn't just trying to negotiate the release of that lone Israeli-American hostage, Don Alexander, but the release of all of the hostages. Robin.
All right, Hannah, thanks to you.
ICE agents have arrested a Palestinian.
So the reason why, I mean, they basically admitted it, which is interesting, but the reason why Israel is doing this is because they're upset with the Trump administration having direct conversations with Hamas. And the Trump administration's response to this has actually been less than kind. Surprisingly enough, while on the one hand, Donald Trump in the United States of America is actively bringing on the clamps for anyone that dare speak out against Israel. On the other hand, kill yourself, Hassan terrorist, dick sucker, says Nick KDV. Nice. Interestingly enough, you were saying this while we are, when you put KY5, that people still understand, like the moderators, the administrators on this platform, another 2013 account, by the way, still recognize that you're saying kill yourself to a content creator. You probably will have your 2013 account banned every single time, by the way. It's almost always people that have been on this platform since 2013, like Justin TV accounts, and they just melt them for no reason. It's very shocking. I don't know why. In any case, like these aren't like young children. These are straight up people that have been on this platform and have been watching this platform for years and years and years. And then they just kind of throw their channel out there and get banned permanently from the website for telling a streamer to kill himself. It's very odd. Having said that, getting back to the story that we were talking about. So the reasons as to why Israel did this, of course, is because they're upset. They're upset with the Trump administration. And when Israel gets upset with anybody, including the Trump administration or the Biden administration or Hezbollah or anyone, they only have one note, and that is to directly attack a group of people that they have power over. They directly go to attack Central Committee. Thank you for the raid, by the way. Hope you had a good stream. They go and they attack the Palestinians in Gaza. This is exactly what happened with Iran, for example. When Iran would respond to Israel, Israel's response back to Iran was rather measured in comparison to the way that Israel behaved in southern Lebanon or Israel behaved in Gaza. Iran would attack Israel, and in retaliation for Israel attacking Iran, and then what would Israel do? They would turn around and bomb Gaza viciously, more aggressively than they had prior, because their one speed, their one note is just always punishing. No matter what happens, they always get their licks in. They always punish the Palestinians. That's it. Why do they do that? Because they have purposely kept the Palestinian population vulnerable so they can do whatever they want to the Palestinian population, including, but not limited to, directly cutting off their humanitarian aid that the rest of the world is desperately trying to bring into Gaza, but then also cutting off their electricity like they have done this week. Now, the reasons as to why they're doing it is because of the anger the anger and frustration that they feel towards the American government sidestepping Israel and going directly to Hamas to have talks with Hamas. Has any other administration directly communicated with terrorists? The answer is yes. I always thought it was we do not negotiate with terrorists. Yet this is the second time the Trump admin has publicly admitted to negotiating with terrorists. No, they do. It's ridiculous. The idea that we don't talk to terrorists is ridiculous. Oftentimes it's done through back channels. And the only reason why you heard about the Trump administration directly communicating with Hamas, okay, the only reason why you heard about it is because Israel leaked it. We are the terrorists. We don't care. What are you talking about? We're the arch terrorists on the planet. If you grew up outside of the sphere of American influence, your understanding of the United States of America is one that, you know, creates terror wherever it goes. That's the difference. A lot of people don't actually meet people from outside of the American sphere of influence, or more importantly, when they do meet people from the outside of the American sphere of influence, oftentimes those people are actually collaborators, or at least like, family members of people who have collaborated with the American government at a certain point. So they have a very different perspective on America. Obviously, they're here. So that's usually the reason why, you know, being here implies that they probably don't have as much anger and resentment towards America. So that will probably give you a very different perspective about whichever nation's population that we're talking about, one that you will not be able to get until you actually go there and meet the people. Okay? That's just kind of how it is. This is a generalization. This is not a rule, okay? I'm not saying that every single person who is Vietnamese, of Vietnamese descent, for example, is directly in support of the United States of America, or every single person who's Cuban living here is directly in support of the United States of America and hates Cuba or whatever. I'm not saying that at all. But if you're confused as to why, like, seemingly a big majority of these populations have an attitude that is like unconditionally pro-U.S., for example, or pro-U.S. foreign policy, especially older generations, that usually comes from the reality that when you come to the United States of America, that means you like the United States of America or its actions in your home nation. So, once again, still not a rule, okay? This is not a rule. This is a generalization that I'm engaging in that isn't necessarily always going to be correct, but I'm simply stating that, and there are multiple factors. There are multiple factors that also play a role in this, like assimilation, wanting to integrate as fast as possible, being victim to a lot of reactionary hate crimes initially, and in that process basically saying, no, you don't understand, I'm super pro-America, and just hamming it up, and then that becoming your front-facing policy, basically. There's also that side of this as well, because a lot of the people that come here, regardless of their background, do actually receive a lot of skepticism, a lot of criticism, and even attacks. Anyway, but I took a major sidestep here. Let's get back to the issue at hand. Here is a one-on-one with Adam Bowler, who is
Bowler. Adam, thanks so much for joining us. Let's start on these direct negotiations with Hamas. First of all,
who is here to talk to Jake Tapper about the direct hostage negotiations that the American government was conducting with Hamas.
Obviously, controversial to directly negotiate with terrorists.
He's the United States envoy for hostages and has been given the rank ambassador by the president, Donald Trump. Adam Bowler, you might be shocked to find out, is first and foremost known as an American businessman and now a government official. Bowler started his career at Battery Ventures, a technology venture capital firm that focuses on investments in software and emerging technologies. He was an operating partner at Francisco Partners, a global private equity firm based in San Francisco, focusing on healthcare. Bowler founded and was chairman of Avalon Health Solutions. He has worked in the U.S. government from 2018 to 2021 on the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Innovation. He was appointed director for the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Innovation at the United States Department of Health and Human Services. Then he did International Development Finance Corporation. On July 10th, 2019, the President of the United States announced his intent to nominate Bowler for the position of Chief Executive Officer of the newly formed U.S. International Development Finance Corporation, a government agency formed through the Better Utilization of Investments Leading to Development Build Act as a consolidation of the Overseas Private Investment Corporation and the Development Credit Authority of the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, into one entity. The nomination was received by the Senate and confirmed unanimously by voice vote on 2019. He's done a bunch of stuff, including but not limited to trying to counter China's Belt and Road Initiative. And now he's back. He's back, and he's doing the Special Presidential Envoy for Hostage Affairs. The reason why I'm talking about this, of course, is because Jake Tapper is interviewing him on why he is talking to why he was talking to Hamas directly, but also not necessarily a bad thing, okay? Just letting you guys know. Trump administration talking directly to Hamas is not a bad thing at all. As a matter of fact, it is a good thing. It is certainly a good thing because the people that have spoiled all ceasefire conversations thus far are on the Israeli side. As a matter of fact, it's not even the Israeli hostage negotiators that are directly spoiling the hostage negotiations, as evidenced by the fact that the Israeli hostage negotiators will routinely come out and speak out against Benjamin Netanyahu. There is one primary party responsible for spoiling every single ceasefire negotiation and every single hostage negotiation. That man is Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, Benjamin Netanyahu does have a broad mandate to do such things, certainly. Having said that, however, even the Israeli hostage negotiators are regularly saying, we do everything, and then we go back to Netanyahu, and he just says no. He adds new deals. He adds new spoilers, poison pill provisions over and over again, which is true. That is what has happened time and time again. Refusing to leave the Philadelphia corridor was a recent one that Benjamin has been holding on to as a poison pill provision over and over again. Anyway, so it's not a bad thing necessarily for the Trump administration to sidestep Netanyahu and directly talk to Hamas, especially because we still hold all the cards. Let's take a look.
Reed is reporting the top Israeli official, Ron Dermer, strongly discouraged you from talking directly with Hamas. He said it was a tense phone call. Tell us about that. Do you understand why Netanyahu, Dermer, others might be upset?
I do like that Jake Tapper is also kind of scolding him. Like, Jake Tapper, who hates Muslims, like just, has virile hatred in his heart for Muslims in general, is supposedly the guy who is the smarter guy in the room, right? Like, the Trump administration is stupid. Jake Tapper is smart, right? And yet, interestingly enough, here he is seemingly scolding this person for sidestepping Israel.
I do understand. I spoke with Ron, and I'm sympathetic. He has someone that he doesn't know well, making direct contact with Hamas. Maybe I would see them and say, look, they don't have horns growing out of their head. They're actually guys like us. They're pretty nice guys. So he doesn't know me, and there are big stakes. He lives in a country where if it sets certain precedents, then it will hurt.
How dare you say Hamas is not having horns growing out of their head? Excuse me. You are not allowed to say these things. How dare you say such things? Hamas certainly has horns growing out of their heads, sir.
Or help a lot of other people. So I understand the consternation and the concern, and I wasn't upset. At the same time, we're the United States. We're not an agent of Israel. We have specific interests.
I mean, it's true.
At play. And we did communicate back and forth. We had very specific parameters by which we fell. And the reality is what I wanted to do is jumpstart some negotiations that were in a very fragile place. And I wanted to say to Hamas, what is the end game that you want here? Not the dream end game, but what do you think is realistic at this point? Because until we know that, it's very hard to reach some sort of truce or some sort of end to hostility. So in the end, I think it was a very helpful meeting. It was very helpful to hear some back and forth. But I think Israel knows walking out of that, it's not like Hamas got the world because I thought they were a bunch of nice guys.
Right.
I don't know why he kept repeating in this interview that he thought Hamas were a bunch of nice guys and then followed it up by saying, well, they didn't get the world because I thought they were a bunch of nice guys, like, you know, but they're not, you know, they're just people like you and I. That right there is an insane thing to say. Okay. When I say that, when I say half of what he just said, people clamp on me and say I'm the worst terrorist loving person on the planet. Now, it's interesting because this is the hostage envoy for the United States having this conversation on Jake Tapper. Now, he walked back some of those statements, for the record. Okay, of course he did. He immediately got pressured. But it's shocking to see, even on accident, any sort of level-headed analysis and clarity coming from the Trump administration. How is that even possible? I do not understand, especially considering that the Trump administration is doing a metric ton of evil when it comes down to any sort of pro-Palestinian sentiment coming out of college campuses, which I'm going to be talking about in a second, okay, which is, you know, some truly devastating things that the Trump administration is doing on that front, greatly undermining the American Constitution. And obviously, we're not exactly too fond of that sort of stuff here, but I always maintain the position that there are things that work in America. There are some good things that the American government does, and the Trump administration is actively bouldering through the remainder of said good things.
How quickly could something come together in terms of this negotiation?
I think something could come together within weeks. I will say that I believe there is enough there to make a deal between what Hamas wants and what they've accepted, and what Israel wants and it's accepted. And I think I think there is a deal where they can get all of the prisoners out, not just the Americans.
So that was interesting, and Reuters confirmed Hamas held talks with U.S. officials about releasing Edon Alexander, a 21-year-old American-Israeli IDF soldier believed to be the last living American hostage in Gaza. Hamas political advisor Taher al-Nono said the discussions held in Doha were positive and flexible. He included talks on implementing the phased agreement to end the war. We informed the American delegation that we don't oppose the release of the prisoners within the framework of these talks, Nono told Reuters. Hamas spokesman Hazem Qassam echoed the same in his remarks to Al Jazeera Mubasher. We are ready to conduct a prisoner exchange process with new keys in the second phase in the agreement. We have no problem meeting with the representatives of the U.S. administration because we realize that it has the power to pressure the occupation. He added, we do not object to releasing Israeli prisoners who hold U.S. citizenship, but within the framework of a comprehensive agreement. Okay?
All prisoners.
Here it is. Speaking to Israeli media, here's what Adam followed through on, because he also spoke to Israeli media as well after this, and I think it's important to hear what he has to say to the Israeli media too.
Suggested exchanging all prisoners. And they suggested a 5-year to 10-year truce where Hamas would lay down all weapons, and where the United States would help, as well as other countries, ensure that there's no tunnels, there's nothing taken on the military side, and that Hamas is not involved in politics going forward.
As you see it today, how close are we to see all hostages released?
I mean, if I want to be optimistic, I would think weeks. They suggested.
Hamas has said multiple times it does not seek to continue governing Gaza and would accept the Palestinian National Unity Administration to take charge or an independent body established in coordination with the Palestinian Authority, similar to the kind proposed under the Arab League-backed Egyptian plan. On the issue of disarmament, Hamas's position has been that it will not lay down its arms unless there is a competent Palestinian force that can defend the rights of Palestinians to self-determination. This is important to recognize as well. Okay? Just so you understand. They're not saying that they will like full-blown just keel over and say, okay, Israel can do whatever it wants to us now, we're done. They're simply stating that they are perfectly willing and capable of laying down their arms and dissolving their political administrative state as long as there is a competent political administrative state led by Palestinians with a force, obviously, because without force, without any sort of military, you cannot have any sort of sovereignty whatsoever, which is unimaginably reasonable. If you have any issues with that, I don't know what to tell you. You just want all of the Palestinians to roll over and go away, which is the Israeli position. The Israeli position literally is die. Okay? Having said that, while that is happening on the one hand. Adam Bowler obviously responded to the pressure that was coming in. The Times of Israel said, deal with Hamas possible within weeks, U.S. envoy Baylor says, but it's not like Hamas got the world because I thought they were a bunch of nice guys. That quote was obviously very shocking for a lot of Israel lovers, especially those in Israel, to which he responded with, I want to be crystal clear, as some have misinterpreted. Hamas is a terrorist organization that has murdered thousands of innocent people. They are, by definition, bad people. And as POTUS has said, not a single Hamas member will be safe if Hamas doesn't release all hostages immediately. It's quite difficult to understand exactly where these guys are coming from because what they say and what they do oftentimes is very different. This is something that we've found out about the Trump administration with tariffs. This is something that the Trump administration has done virtually every single day. They will come in, they will boulder in, they will say some insane stuff, they'll do mass layoffs, and then they'll go, oopsie, my bad, and then they'll try to restore it piece by piece. So Adam Baylor, I don't know how to say his last name, going and talking to Hamas directly is very impactful. It's very important, okay? It's unique, it's important, and it's a good thing that it's happening. On the one hand, him going to American television and being like, yeah, no, these guys are just normal guys. We're going to have to talk to them like it's crazy. That's also incredible. That's different. That is very different than the previous modus operandi of the American government. We've also heard this from my goat, Steve Goatkoff, as well. It is interesting that these guys are doing this sort of stuff, but then when pressure comes in, they turn around and they like kind of scale it back with their statements. But focusing on the statements alone will not allow you to understand the full scope. What you must focus on instead are the actions. And in terms of the foreign policy actions, I would say, you know, we still have to wait and see. Okay? We still have to wait and see. Secretary of State Rubio has said, by the way, that Bowler's talks with Hamas were a one-off and stresses it hasn't borne fruit. Rubio added that the main channel for talks on a Gaza hostage deal is White House envoy Steve Witkoff. Now, Marco Rubio saying this, I think, moves the needle in the opposite direction. I will say it's not good. Marco Rubio saying that means that they are, you know, still playing ball with Israel. They're playing damage control with Israel. They're afraid of upsetting and offending Israel, which is not something you should think about. You're the United States of America. It's very frustrating. It's incredibly frustrating that there still is this like weird notion, this weirdness that we are entertaining. We're still entertaining this idea that like Israel holds all the cards when it clearly does not. It is not the case. We hold the cards. We are the United goddamn States of America. But if you wanted to understand why Israel is shutting off energy, shutting off the electricity to the Gaza Strip once again, if you want to understand why Israel is stopping humanitarian aid from going into the Gaza Strip once again, it's a response to that because they can't do anything to America, so they will turn around and punish the civilian Gazan population because that's the only thing they have. Please don't use the phrase holds the cards. Those are Trump's words and it's super gross because of that. I don't care. I've been saying that far before Donald Trump, and I will continue saying that. One last note that I want to mention before moving on to Trump administration's insane domestic policies in terms of you know, dealing with Israel, hurting Israel's feelings and whatnot. Obviously, we'll get to that. Is this incredible analog from history. As the Associated Press reported that Israel is cutting off its electricity supply to Gaza a week after cutting off all supplies of goods into the territory, Israel sought to press Hamas to accept an extension of the first phase of their ceasefire, reneging on the previous three-phase ceasefire agreement that Hamas had initially put forward, that the Brandon administration had claimed Israel had put forward, that Israel has refused to recognize in perpetuity. And the analog here is from World War II. That's right. On April 19th, this is what Dan Cohen is saying. On April 19th in 1943, German Nazis, unable to combat the Jewish resistance of the Warsaw Ghetto and its tunnel network, cut off electricity, water, and gas soon after they burned the ghetto down. He says Zionist Israel is today's Nazi Germany. I've talked about the Warsaw Ghetto uprising quite a bit as a very apt analog into understanding what has happened in terms of Palestinian resistance, in terms of Palestinian militancy. Okay? I'm going to read this choice quote from the article from the Jewish Historical Institute talking about the Warsaw Ghetto uprising and what the Nazi government's response was to the Warsaw Ghetto uprising, also in Arabic known as the Warsaw Intifada. On the April, Samar and Freckenegg, Germans entered the. They were defended by Rivendell, who had one machine gun. After the first day, the insurgents lost one person while Stroop 12. This was a definitive victory for the Jewish fighters, the Jewish resistance. The next day brought combat into the brushmaker's workshop. The gate at the Wolova Street was rigged to blow up. The bomb exploded when the Germans tried to enter the building. At the second attempt, they managed to circle a group of insurgents. Michael Klepfiz distracted the Germans to help his comrades escape. He died of machine gun fire. For his courage, he received the Virtuti Militari Order. And after a bunch of fighting that took place, two flags, a white and blue and red one, were placed on Murnowski Square. Germans tried to negotiate with the fighters, and after failing to achieve an agreement, they cut off electricity, water, and gas in the ghetto area. 1-1. 1-1. Obviously, Israel's awful, but I really don't like the Holocaust comparisons. It downplays how awful the Holocaust was. Yeah, no, I don't care that you have an issue with that. I don't care that you take issue with that. Dan Cohen himself is Jewish making this comparison, and I think it's a perfectly apt comparison. The only reason why it hurts your feelings is because the genocide during the Holocaust, the genocide of the Jews, was completed. That's the only difference here. So yes, the entire point of the entire reason for learning about history, specifically the Holocaust, which is one of the most studied atrocities, okay? But the entire reason for learning about it is so that we don't repeat it again. That's what never again is supposed to imply, okay? Never again doesn't mean, oh, this will never happen again, and it only happened once, and it never happened before. There is no exceptionalism that I will entertain in this process. I never entertained it when we were talking about concentration camps for deportations along the American border, when people would get mad at that and they'd be like, oh, how dare you call it a concentration camp? That is precisely the purpose, okay? The idea that we can't look at horrifying atrocities throughout history with hopes of recognizing how we got there, how those people got there, and learn some lessons and apply that to ongoing current atrocities, it basically betrays the entire reason for why people learn history, okay? It is a perfectly apt comparison, and I urge you, chatters who consider this to be unique or exceptional, I urge you to try to seek within, dig deep, and try to figure out why you think it's exceptional. I get that. It's just illegal in my country, which is Germany. Of course. Listen to what I'm saying, okay? Listen to my words. Why does it feel like this is inappropriate in terms of comparison when there is a direct parity here? Okay? We learn about history, not to just go, oh, wow, that happened. That was crazy. Well, there's no lessons to be learned here. We learn about history specifically so that we don't repeat it. A lot of people don't understand this when it comes to the prosecution of a genocide, right? Nowadays, there is at least some legal structure that has been created to prosecute genocide. Now, obviously, it's somewhat of a toothless institution, whether it's the International Court of Justice or the International Criminal Court, as we've seen, especially when it comes to directing the legal crosshairs at America or an extension of America like Israel or even America's allies and the Western world. Having said that, the reason why we have a prosecutorial apparatus for figuring out how genocide is being conducted and focus on intentionality rather than the raw numbers is because the entire goal of this regulatory body is to stop it before it finalizes. Does that make sense? Because if we were to only prosecute the genocide after it has been completed, well, then far too many Palestinians will have been ethnically displaced and ethnically cleansed. And one might even say that that has already happened, right? There is some uniqueness, exceptionalism to the Holocaust from a historical perspective, but comparisons are not inappropriate. Equating may be considered inappropriate given the context, but generally it's a significant event to point to because most people understand it. We just need to be careful not to trivialize or downplay the Holocaust. I don't think you are, by the way. Yes, I will never downplay or trivialize the Holocaust. But in terms of the mechanized atrocities, in terms of the mechanized death and destruction that took place in the Holocaust, obviously in the aftermath of the Holocaust, there were these agencies that I'm talking about that were put in place so that there's international law. There are rules of warfare that changed in the aftermath of World War II. So living in the world where we have these rules in place, okay, it's not going to be, especially with the internet, especially when you can like see it happening in real time and completely understand what's going on in a way that like the rest of the world was kind of oblivious to in World War II in Nazi Germany until they arrived at the concentration camps. Like obviously Israel still has limitations in this process. The only exceptional thing about the Holocaust is that it happened in the Imperial Core. Jay Mershon, you said you are moronic, but I do think that it's not the only exceptional thing about the Holocaust, but it certainly is an exceptional thing about the Holocaust, especially considering the many different atrocities that took place prior to the Holocaust during colonialism, whether it be chattel slavery or a lot of Belgian missions in African states, German missions in African states as well. Like all of these things that took place were comparable in almost size and scope as well, but it is not regarded in the same way as the Holocaust because the Holocaust was implemented by a Western nation against people that were not considered in the in-group white at the time, certainly by the German state, but everybody else considered them to be a part of the imperial core in that regard. It was being done to, it was neighbors doing it to their neighbors. But yes, that's not the only exceptional aspect of it, though. That's not correct. I think the industrialization of this genocide was, I think, a unique part of this as well. But I would say that my only issue is the word only. Look at Rwanda. The mechanisms of which genocide took place there are immensely different from the Holocaust. No, absolutely. But I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about colonial violence beforehand from the very same states or like, neighboring states. When the victims are Africans, usually it's just not. It's just regarded as a part of history, but never paid attention to in the same way. And I think that it's certainly because of the singular industrialized nature of the Holocaust, but also beyond that, the victims as well, for sure. And yes, in terms of the sheer brutality and in terms of the sheer violence, like the situation is very different now. Like we have rules specifically designed to make sure that this doesn't happen ever again. So, of course, those rules are limitations set upon the Israeli state. The Israeli state is also not waging this industrialized warfare that it calls war, but it's actually a genocide upon a captive civilian population it is the belligerent occupier of without American support. They're not doing this on their own. They would never be able to do this on their own, which is part of the reason why there is some limitations to what they can get away with doing. And they greatly, push the boundaries to the best of their ability. Make no mistake. To quote Mark Edelman, a surviving leader of the uprising, all it was about ultimately was that we not let them slaughter us when our turn came. It was only a choice as to the matter of dying. Yeah. Are you regretting voting for Trump yet? Ha ha ha. If you think I voted for Donald Trump, you need to go back to your doctor and ask him to prescribe you lithium because you are hallucinating. Straight up. All right. Anyway, we shouldn't. The reason why I brought the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising as a 1-to-1 analog is because, understandably, people pushed to the brink in the Warsaw Ghetto, took matters into their own hands with the limited resources that they had, and they were right to do so. Okay? And the German government that had profound power and control over this captive population greatly increased the violence in that process. It's an apt comparison to any kind of Palestinian militancy that has evolved throughout time and become more violent as a direct consequence of how violent the apartheid administration has been. Lithium is a mood stabilizer, not an antipsychotic. Okay, my bad. So, important to recognize that. Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, the left-wing Palestinian resistance group, is calling on progressive forces, human rights organizations, and student unions in the United States and worldwide to take urgent action to expose the crackdown on Palestinian rights advocates on U.S. college campuses. The recent actions reveal the true fascist face of the Trump administration, the group said in a statement. They called Trump's push to detain and deport student activists a systematic oppression campaign and said this repressive behavior will not scare free people, nor will it stop courageous voices from continuing to support the Palestinian cause. And yes, the only thing, and I'm going to get to that story now about Mahmoud Khalil, a student activist who led the Columbia protests, who is now in ICE custody. Okay? This is a horrifying story, an absolutely morally repugnant, horrifying story. And the reaction from Americans has also been just as horrifying. Okay? It is insane. Now, of course, Donald Trump signaled that he would do this. So it's not surprising, if that makes sense. It's still, that doesn't change the reality that it is a completely morally repugnant act. It betrays the American Constitution. It betrays free speech. It is genuinely messed up. I don't know how else to describe it beyond the fact that I have no words for it. I have no words to describe this moral depravity. What ended up happening is ICE arrested a student activist. They realized that he was not on a visa in the process of arresting him, as the Trump administration had signaled that if you are a student activist that has protested against Israel, we will deport you. We will remove your visa. This is something that they said they were going to do. They realized that he didn't actually have a student visa. He actually had a green card. He was married to an American citizen who was 8 months pregnant with his child. And they took him anyway. Colombia, in the process, actually cooperated with ICE, for the record, which is also, again, betraying the students, betraying the student body, betraying the principle of being a place for learning, a place for education, like actively collaborating with the Gestapo against your own students is shocking. It's unimaginable. So ICE did what ICE does. They took him anyway. They grabbed him. He is now in a Louisiana facility as we speak. And they said that they were revoking his green card. People have not been able to communicate with him since yesterday. And the Secretary of State then announced that green card holders will also have their green cards revoked. This is what Marco Rubio said. Marco Rubio, who got 99 votes in a Senate confirmation hearing from the likes of Bernard Sanders as well. We will be revoking the visas and or green cards of Hamas supporters in America so they can be deported. Mahmoud Khalil's crime was having moral courage. That's it. He saw what Israel was doing and he thought it was unconscionable. Mahmoud Khalil has now been moved to an ICE facility in Jena, Louisiana. DSA here in Louisiana has been working since this morning to get him aid and get him in contact with everyone he needs to hear from. Not sure if he or his team have a call to action for supporting him during this time or not. Asking my chapter currently, and I'll let you know as soon as I hear from anything. Yes, I already mentioned this, but yes, his wife is an American citizen and is 8 months pregnant. And for hours, they didn't tell her where he was. And yes, Shai Davide also demanded that this person get deported. Let's take a look at the story, and I'll get to it a little bit. I'll talk more about it. But there's also currently a protest happening in New York as well. But we'll get to that in a little bit. Let's talk about some of the other details.
Who helped lead last year's protests at Columbia University. Mahmoud Khalil's attorney says the agents said the former graduate student's green card was being revoked. Christina Fan joins us live from Columbia's Morningside Heights campus with the latest. Christina.
Natalie, good morning. Mahmoud Khalil was a well-known figure here on campus, known for organizing and leading the student encampment that was pro-Palestinian here on campus last spring. His attorney has vowed to file a vigorous legal appeal, accusing the government of openly repressing student activism. We know that federal immigration authorities arrested Khalil Saturday night, and according to his attorney, Amy Greer, he was taken into custody inside his university-owned apartment while with his pregnant wife. Greer says federal agents claim they were fulfilling a State Department order to revoke his student visa, and when she told them he was a legal permanent resident with a green card, they said they were revoking that instead. A spokesperson with the Department of Homeland Security released a statement saying the arrest was in support of President Trump's executive orders prohibiting anti-Semitism, claiming Khalil led activities aligned.
Does he have any legal defense? Yes, he has endless amounts of legal defense. Are you kidding me? Yes. As it stands, this is a violation of numerous pre-existing American laws. You cannot simply engage in the process of revoking someone's green card for not violating any serious, severe crimes. When someone has a green card and they actually engage in some kind of serious crime, even then, the process of denaturalization and deportation would be unique, okay? He has not done anything. He has not violated the law as it stands, unless there is a clear-cut law where you just say, hey, if you hurt Israel's feelings, we will deport you. Until that becomes the law, there is no law that he has violated. So he has a chance to stay? Yes, he does. He does have a chance to stay. Obviously, I have no real confidence in the American criminal justice system, but this is, this is a novel example for sure. It's not one that I can think of from American history. Like there's not really any comparisons I can think of
to Hamas, a designated terrorist organization. According to an immigration expert not related to this case, Khalil's arrest violates due process.
If he's a green card holder, slam dunk, there's no way to arrest him. If he has not been charged with a crime, or if he's, if there's something more than that, really, there's no way, number one. Because you're dealing with a legal resident alien, which means you're dealing with the green card holder who has a lot of rights in our country.
Yeah, you are basically de facto an American citizen at that point, okay? That's insane. This is one step removed from denaturalization, like having a natural-born U.S. citizen, someone who was born on U.S. soil, someone like myself, for example, having his citizenship removed simply because the president said so, or simply because the State Department says so. It's just like it is a violation of numerous American laws. Okay. And here is the legal standing, or here is like the legal reasoning or justification that the American government used here. The arrest of Mahmoud Khalil, a prominent Palestinian activist, was based on a provision of immigration law that gives the administration broad authority on who can be subject to deportation, I'm told. The Immigration and Nationality Act states that an alien whose presence or activities in the United States, the Secretary of State has reasonable ground to believe would have potentially serious adverse foreign policy consequences for the United States is deportable. That provision of the law was used in this case as grounds to detain Khalil, according to a senior Department of Homeland Security official. It's also expected to be used in future cases. The real reason why they're doing this is to create a chilling effect. Okay? This violates the principle of the First Amendment. That is the only reason why they're doing this. They don't actually believe that this person is a terrifying figure or a terrorist or anything like that. They just don't want people on student visas or American citizens or green card holders to protest against the state of Israel. That's it. That's it. So when people come in here and ask me, Hassan, are you afraid? Like, is this going to happen to someone like yourself? We're not at that level. We're not at the level where they denaturalize U.S.-born citizens, even though the Trump administration has actively talked about, doing exactly that at one point. We're not there yet. But having said that, this doesn't put fear in my heart. It just puts anger in my heart. And I hope that you guys can also feel the way that I'm feeling in this moment. This shouldn't cause you to be fearful, because there are a lot more of us than there are of them. Okay? There are a lot more of us who understand exactly what is going on in Gaza and are angry about it, are willing to protest, than there are people who don't feel that way, people who want to silence you. It's that simple. Okay? There is nothing that they can do in the face of genuine moral conviction. It's completely unacceptable. And I suspect that people will push back. I will do everything in my power to do so as well. Okay? Jeremy Scahill had a take on this. He said, it's remarkable how so many people who just got their law degrees on Twitter don't understand a basic constitutional principle. A person is not convicted of a crime because someone, including the president, accuses them of a crime. This applies to U.S. citizens and non-citizens alike. They are simply trying to do their very best to get you to stop protesting. They openly has said it as such as well. The ADL, which is supposed to be a civil rights organization, by the way, I tweeted about this yesterday. The ADL, that is supposed to be a civil rights organization in the United States, was celebrating this. Okay? They were celebrating this decision. The Apartheid Defense League was celebrating the decision of the White House and the Department of Homeland Security, the decision to revoke the green card of an American green card holder married to an American citizen who was 8 months pregnant for the crime of hurting Israel's feelings. The ADL thinks it's okay to revoke the green card of student activists. This is supposed to be a civil rights organization, by the way, is what I tweeted. Here's what the ADL said. We firmly believe that there would be swift and severe consequences for those who provide material support to foreign terrorist organizations, incite violence in support of terrorist activities, or conceal their identities in order to harass and intimidate Jewish individuals and institutions with impunity. We appreciate the Trump administration's broad, bold set of efforts to counter campus anti-Semitism, and this action further illustrates that resolve by holding alleged perpetrators responsible for their actions. Obviously, any deportation or action or revocation of a green card holder or visa must be undertaken in alignment with required due process protections. We also hope that this action serves as a deterrent to others who might consider breaking the law on college campuses or anywhere. When they're not defending Elon Musk throwing up a Sig Heil, they're defending the Nazi government doing Nazi things. Here's the Columbia Jewish Alumni Association, which played a role in this happening, by the way, celebrating the decision of the Department of Homeland Security. Now that Mahmoud Khalil has been taken into ICE custody, his supporters are spinning a sob story about why you should feel sorry for him. Here's why you shouldn't, and why this is exactly what needs to happen to restore order to campuses like Columbia in our country. Khalil wasn't just another protester. He was a ringleader of the chaos in Columbia. Here he is acting as a spokesperson for the Hamilton Hall takeover, a ringleader at Milstein Hall occupation, distributed materials supporting terrorism. For over a year, Columbia coddled Khalil. They excused him. They negotiated with him. They suspended, then unsuspended him. He responded by escalating with more and more demands. Demands! In capital letters. What were those demands? Demands that the Columbia University divest from Israel. Very reasonable demands, mind you. Very reasonable. And also that the Columbia University authorities actually demonstrate transparency over the ways in which they are suspending student activists. Okay? None of this is illegal, by the way. None of this. Civil disobedience is perfectly permissible, perfectly acceptable. It's the only tool that people have until you push them into a corner and they don't want to be civil any longer. This is something that a lot of Americans don't understand, because while there have been instances of militancy throughout U.S. history, and some of that militancy has led to the weekend, for example, and labor rights and labor protections that we actually take for granted without even thinking about it, okay? The abolition of child labor. Things of that nature that the current American administration is actively clawing back, by the way, and actively undermining on a daily basis. But as I've said time and time again, I always bring back the JFK quote on this issue. Those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable. Okay? That's it. That's what you're doing. You cannot consistently push people and expect them not to retaliate in return. That's it. It can't go on. like this. It just simply cannot go on like this. There will be blowback to this, I'm telling you. No one forced Khalil to barge into campus, disrupt learning, or take over buildings. No one forced him to lead mobs that demonize America or harass and intimidate Jews. This was his choice. Reportedly, Khalil's green card is being revoked. Good. A green card is a privilege that millions wait years for. So is studying at Columbia. Khalil threw them away. His actions prove he neither respects nor deserves the shot he was given. No one should feel sorry for him. Khalil's supporters report that he recently graduated. If so, how and why was he on a closed Barnard College campus? He knew full well he didn't belong there, and he snuck onto campus for the express purpose of interrupting the learning of others. Khalil has spent over a year abusing the privileges of this country and Columbia gave him. He faced zero consequences until now. If he's finally being removed as an anti-Semitic instigator and anti-Western provocateur, this isn't a strategy. This isn't a tragedy. This is justice. That is what the Columbia Jewish Alumni Association said. ADL, of course, the Apartheid Defense League, obviously, supported this. I can't explain to you how unimaginable how insanely cruel this is. I don't know how else to describe to you how cruel this is, how ridiculous this is. And although in this process, those who use their Judaism as a defense mechanism, as a shield, to claim that this is anti-Semitic because he's criticizing the state of Israel, okay, what those people do not comprehend is that these rules will inevitably be used against Jews. First, anti-Zionist Jews, and then all Jews across the board. And you're a fucking dumbass for not realizing that. And the only reason why I'm bringing this up is not because like, oh, Jews are exceptional and they must be preserved or they must be protected or anything like that. I'm not doing Jewish exceptionalism or whatever the fuck people say I'm doing. I'm simply saying that if you care about self-preservation and you actively champion these things, you are actively championing your own inevitable demise. You are a fucking short-sighted moron. Do you understand? Wake the fuck up. It is quite literally baked in to Holocaust studies. Understanding the idea that it doesn't start with just trade unionists or socialists, okay? Ridiculous. Update from Zateo on Mahmoud. Scoop. Emails obtained by Zateo News shows Mahmoud Khalil reached out for help from Columbia administration one day before ICE detained him. He said he couldn't sleep from threats he was receiving. He even wrote he feared ICE might come to his home. And they did. And they did. And now people are saying he's a terrorist. Here's Izzy Breen. Organizations of Jews cheering, clapping as armed agents of the state remove a young person from public life without telling the public or even a family where he is, without even an ounce of self-awareness. Okay. The White House then said, Shalom, Mahmoud. We will find, apprehend, and deport these terrorist sympathizers from our country, never to return again, using the Trump quote. The White House has been actively also partnering without, I don't know how this doesn't even like spell trouble for anyone who cares about self-preservation as an American Jew. Okay. Like liberal Zionists or conservative Zionist Jews don't fucking recognize how devastating this is for their own fucking future on this soil, by the way. Yeah. Izzy said, huge test for Democrats. What's more important, Israel or democracy? It's pretty obvious that they don't care about democracy. They care about Israel. Let's be real. The other Shalom tweet was even grosser than the previous one that we just looked at. Okay. Where is it? Let me see if I can find it real quick. Because the White House also posted yet another Shalom tweet, I think. This is going to create actual anti-Semitism? Of course it is. What do you mean? And it has already. Israel's actions being paired up with Judaism and the Western defenders of Israel claiming that this is being done at the behest of Judaism is already fucking exploding anti-Semitism. The next generation is already locked in. They're saying like, oh, well, if they're doing this right now, then what was Hitler right about? That is like the most common thing that young people say, okay? That is literally going on right now. And the retaliation to that is not to be reasonable and immediately separate the actions of a violent genocidal apartheid state from the entire religion. Instead of doing that, people are offensively celebrating this shit. I don't know how no one can see the devastating impact of doing shit like this. Shalom, saying, Shalom, Mahmoud. ICE proudly apprehended and detained Mahmoud Khalil, a radical foreign pro-Hamas student on the campus of Columbia University. This is the first arrest of many to come. Donald Trump then turned around and said, following my previously signed executive orders, I proudly apprehended and detained Mahmoud Khalil, a radical, foreign, pro-Hamas student on the campus of Columbia University. This is the first arrest of many to come. We know there are more students at Columbia and other universities across the country who have engaged in pro-terrorist, anti-Semitic, anti-American activity, and the Trump administration will not tolerate it. Many are not students. They are paid agitators. We will find, apprehend, and deport these terrorist sympathizers from our country, never to return again. If you support terrorism, including the slaughtering of innocent men, women, and children, your presence is contrary to our national and foreign policy interests, and you are not welcome here. We expect every one of America's colleges and universities to comply. Thank you. Yes, we have crossed the Rubicon when it comes to the insane ways in which this administration is just undermining the insane ways in which this administration is undermining the Constitution, weaponizing the Department of Homeland Security against people that they consider to be political dissidents. Okay, this has nothing to do with like protecting Hamas or offering material support to a terrorist organization. Suck my dick. Okay, shut the fuck up. There have been numerous instances throughout American history where American politicians have actively offered real material support to institutions and organizations that were otherwise declared terrorist organizations. Okay? The most obvious and prescient example right now is Israel. That's number one. Number two, even one that was considered a terror cell by other Western nations, is the IRA. Americans fundraised and sent arms shipments directly to the IRA. What are we talking about? I'm not even talking about the Iran-Contra affair. I'm not talking about the American State Department actively offering material support and training and radicalization and logistics to virtually every single terror cell on this fucking planet, either directly or indirectly by way of local allies such as local regional powers such as Turkey, okay, or other NATO nations. That's not what I'm even talking about here. I'm saying like directly American citizens offering material support to groups that were considered terrorist groups has happened throughout American history. There's never been this level of reaction towards it. That is not even what Mahmoud Khalil did, by the way, which makes this even worse. Between 1973 and 1978, 500,000 rounds of 5.56 45 millimeter NATO ammunition stolen from U.S. Marine base were successfully sent to the IRA. 1979, the Gardai seized a cargo of more than 150 guns and 60,000 rounds of ammunition, including 2 M60 machine guns, 15 M16 rifles, a number of M14 rifles, and an AK-47 sent from the United States. Irish Americans offered direct material support to the IRA, and they had every right to do so, by the way. They were on the right side, okay? This person did not do that for Hamas. He didn't do any of those things. He simply protested against the state of Israel. That's it. That is insane. And he wasn't the only person, by the way. Okay? ICE agents also visited a second Palestinian student living in Columbia-owned housing over the weekend and attempted to take her into custody, but were turned away at the door, according to a union representing the student. That's right. I had the UAW representative H. Bizzle in the chat, ringing the alarm bells about this as well. Do not open the door to ICE agents ever. Trump warns that arrest of Palestinian activists in Columbia will be the first of many, and it turns out they were also actively targeting another student there as well. It's just like an insane thing. I don't know. I don't know how people don't recognize how this will be damaging for them as well. The NIH is now cutting grants directly at Columbia, by the way. The NIH is today terminating more than $250 million in funding, including more than 400 grants to Columbia University, following the directives from the Trump administration's Joint Task Force to Combat Anti-Semitism. The cancellations are due to Columbia University's continued inaction in the face of persistent harassment of Jewish students. Here's what they did. They created a fake problem. Liberal media elevated this fake problem because of their own personal loyalty to the State Department agenda under the Brandon administration. And now the Trump administration comes in and says, you see, we're dealing with the anti-Semitism on college campuses. It's not real anti-Semitism on college campuses, okay? And even if there was anti-Semitism on college campuses, whether it be fucking Nazis protesting or anything else, this is not an adequate measure to deal with that, okay? Cutting off grant funding to college campuses and deporting people is an insane thing to do, especially when considering that when neo-Nazis that participated in Charlottesville were allowed to literally graduate from Columbia University in the past. One of the organizers of the Charlottesville neo-Nazi rally where people were marching in the fucking streets with tiki torches saying Jews will not replace us, actually anti-Semitic shit, not simply saying Israel's an apartheid state, okay? Or that Zionism is fascist and we must not allow Zionism to fester. Those are not comparable statements. One is correct, the other one is Nazi bullshit. And Columbia treated one very differently than the other. Okay? This is white supremacy in full display. Leah Greenberg says, if you as an American Jew do not want to be used as the excuse for destruction of civil liberties and basic democratic protections, the time to speak out is right now. 100%, straight up. And it's not just Jewish Americans. It's all Americans that have to speak out against this. This is, I don't, like, if you look at the situation and think, he's a terrorist, fuck him. Okay? You are a delusional loser. If you look to the situation and say, he's just a terrorist, who cares? You do not understand what you are championing. You're not naive, you're evil. This reminds me of the more humorous quote from before the election regarding support for Hamas that you read before. What is this? Very funny and very correct Felix's position was, and I'm going to read this, okay? In terms of like lending support to Hezbollah or whatever, Felix also said, hold on, let me see if I can find it real quick. He said, I hate that the central conceit here is that any American can meaningfully support Ansar Allah, Hezbollah, or really anyone like that. An American supporting or condemning any of these groups, they literally can provide no material, logistical, or any other type of tangible assistance to, makes as much sense as an American condemning the Battle of Agincourt. It's like, that's it. Like, we're just chirping into the fucking void. The American government is Sharia law better or fascism? What? Sharia law? Where is Sharia law? What are you talking about, dude? Is doing whatever the fuck it wants regardless. That much is clear. Yeah, it's just it's a ridiculous statement. And not only is it a ridiculous statement because it's like virtually impossible without any sort of like criminal punishment that you receive, including fucking torture and being put in Guantanamo Bay immediately. Okay? There is no real material support that you can offer these groups regardless. But outside of that, what they are considering material support is simply saying Israel is an apartheid state, that Israel's doing a genocide, and demanding that our institutions take actions against that. That is insane to me. Okay? And you know from my own personal back and forth online, wherever I go, the comments are fucking filled to the brim with Hassan loves terrorism. Hassan wants Jewish women to be raped or whatever the fuck these rabid psychos say. Regardless of what my commentary on this issue is, a lot of these people just simply say, oh, you support Palestinian emancipation? You're a terrorist. You love terrorism. You want Jews to die. Okay? This is an incredibly dangerous prospect. I'm not saying this simply out of self-preservation. Okay? This is completely unacceptable. It is officially Turkish levels of political suppression, okay? Suppressing dissent to this degree is insane. This is unironically something that has happened throughout American history in the past, in dark pages of American history, in terms of like the McCarthyist trials, the Red Scare, and the blacklisting that took place, internment camps for the Japanese during World War II, things of that nature. We've done a lot of horrible things, okay? But god damn, this is like, maybe this happened. Maybe this happened in the anti-Vietnamese occupation protests as well. Students engaged in a lot more militant action back then. But I don't know if they ever actually deported student protesters in the process. Like, I don't know if they actually utilized this level of political suppression. If you think this is acceptable, you wouldn't have been resisting the Nazis in 1940. You would have been helping them. Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, they did Kent State, obviously. They shot them. There was that. They did do that. Asmongold reacts to the Chinese UCLA student getting visa revoked for organizing rallies in support of Palestinians. What? This isn't even real. This wasn't a Chinese national who organized protests at UCLA and she didn't get her visa revoked. This was a fake story. She's not even Chinese, I don't think. Like, every part of this is fucking fake, dude. What the hell is going on?
And so, really, if you have a person who's organizing a group of people to collectively commit a crime, well, then, yeah, I think it makes sense to get them the fuck out of here. Like,
What is the crime? Aren't you a fucking free speech defender? What the hell is this? The crime is what? Protesting against Israel is not a crime, at least still to this day. I guess in 38 states it might as well be. 37 states it might as well be. But if you're a fucking free speech defender, what the hell are you saying here? This is a clear-cut violation of the First Amendment. New York Times headline about it. Oh, this was a famous New York Times story from Columbia hears plea for expelled student. Berg and two other speakers demand his reinstatement at gathering of 500. 3 members of the American Student Union, including Robert Burke, who was expelled in June for leading the anti-Nazi demonstrations last May, addressed a gathering of 500 students of the college and various schools at Columbia University in front of Hamilton Hall yesterday noon. It's so crazy that for so many people, they just openly say, like, no, you don't understand. Just like free speech means I can say slurs and you can't say anything about it. You can't even like feel upset about it. Okay. But if you actually are peacefully demonstrating against a violent apartheid regime doing a genocide, then of course you're not going to have free speech. What do you mean? There's no freedom to protest against Israel. What are you talking about? Yeah, of course. You should go to jail. You should get deported. What do you mean? Free speech is just to say slurs without any additional free speech that comes after those slurs, by the way. I have free speech to say slurs. You don't even have the right to use your speech against that, okay? No, make no mistake. It just goes one direction. I cannot understand how you can look at this. This is like not even a real story, even though the real version of this has now happened, okay? But it's hilarious that Asmongold, who claims to be a free speech defender, is like, yeah, you should get deported based hurting Israel's feelings. Yeah.
We've got enough of these people on our own here that are living here already. You think we need more of them? We're going to need to import more of them from fucking...
There's no discussion on this either when the other side is doing the suffering Olympics driven by spite for their own countrymen. And it doesn't help that 80% of them are dumber than dog shit. 60-year-olds who get Google Play cards scammed by Kevin Costner Facebooks.
in China. So yeah, it's insane. That's obstruction and harassment. Yeah, I guess so. What's the correct way to protest without breaking the law?
Oh, dude, yeah, no. And if the law says you can't protest Israel, then yep, that's it. It's even better when you consider a source, my subreddit. Is this from his subreddit? No, this is from World News Video or some shit. It doesn't fucking matter. It also doesn't matter because this was a fake story, but now there is a real story. There is a real story of a person who's having his green card revoked, potentially, for the crime of hurting Israel's feelings. I can only react to this image as I am, a Jew. To make Jewish words and phrases interchangeable with ICE detention is to make Judaism the face of fascism. This has happened in Israel and will happen here if we allow it, says David Grossman. It nauseates me on a basic level to see Judaism used as some sort of fascist taunt. The mixture of Jewish and Nazi signals from this administration is an intentional mixture to depoliticize Nazism and create a vision where only right-wing Judaism is seen as legitimate. Free Mahmoud and free Palestine. Daniel Greenfield. You are not a Jew. You are a human shield for those who terrorize and kill Jews. Real question. Are you concerned about them trying to arrest you? I don't give a fuck. I am a rich Twitch streamer, okay? I am the last person who matters in this process. We're talking about a real student activist who fucking put his body on the line and is now facing repercussions as a consequence of that. I think putting myself in this position is ridiculous, okay? I'm not saying it can't happen, but it's not something that I care about or entertain at this moment. And it's not something that will stop me from continuing to speak truth to power in this process. And it shouldn't stop you either. Okay? We all have our rights. At least right now, we still have our rights. We still have a right to resist against this sort of thing. We still have the criminal justice system. And I hope that there are more reasonable people that are in positions of power right now that will put an end to this nonsense. Oh my fucking Lord. But it won't happen unless there is mass mobilization. Okay? Yeah. Meanwhile, at Harvard, Former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, who headlined an event at Columbia right before Mahmoud Khalil was detained, just joked at a Harvard event that he would give exploding pagers to students protesting his visit. Jaeger Larson, thank you for the 21 gifted subs. Former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett joked to hundreds of people about sending explosive devices to dissenting event attendees at a talk at the Harvard Business School on Thursday, according to 6 people present at the discussion. HBS Professor Paul A. Gompers, 86, the moderator, began the off-the-record event by explaining Harvard's guidelines on disruption, noting that the dissenting audience members who interrupt the speaker would be removed. Bennett then interrupted to add, "I think we'll just give them a pager." Isn't that wonderful? If you are a former Israeli prime minister, you can joke about assassinating American college campus protesters against you. You can just joke about that sort of thing. It's perfectly fine. Mahmoud did everything that Columbia wanted and the students to do, always respectful and calm, was chosen to be the lead negotiator for this reason, and was always unmasked. It didn't help. Yeah. Here's the other aspect of this, that he didn't fucking violate any rules and actually abided by the rules as well. Okay? What really gets me is Mahmoud did everything that administrators claimed they wanted from us. He was always unmasked. He was extremely tactful with his words, was a legal permanent resident, was kind and patient even with those who dehumanized him, always stayed rational and calm. He was a lead negotiator precisely because of these qualities he had that I and so many of us lack. He always extended grace to those who didn't deserve it. He always helped us ground ourselves in the face of the constant trauma Columbia inflicted upon us all since October 2023. Any journalist who interacted with him can speak to his character. It does not matter how perfectly we behave or how pure-hearted we clearly are. When fascism comes knocking at our doors, we will start with the most vulnerable and eventually get to eroding all of our rights. Open your eyes. I'm begging you to open your eyes. While many may have come knocking at Mahmoud Khalil's door yesterday, you will hear the knock at your own door tomorrow. And if you don't resist this now, nobody will be left to resist for you when it's too late. This is straightforwardly Nazi Germany shit, okay? There's no other way to put it. I don't know. I don't know what else to say, man. I really don't know what else to say. And you got fucking donkeys celebrating this decision. Like, it's so goddamn gross. It's wild to read about Nazi Germany and be shocked at the ways in which dehumanization it actively becomes the normative position in society, and the atrocities that unfold as a consequence of that. And then you read that shit and you go, oh, that could never happen again. I mean, come on, dude. That could certainly never happen again. That's insane. It's like, how did this happen? How do people become so complicit? You think to yourself, oh, well, back then they simply did not have access to information in real time. They didn't have the internet. They didn't know what was going on, even though many did, right? They smelled it. They saw it. It was visible in the backdrop of their everyday lives, and they looked the other way, either out of fear or because they didn't care. And yet, we're watching it unfold in real time, and we're watching it unfold in real time in broad daylight, and everyone can see it taking place. And it seems like, unlike previous civil rights movements, right, whether it be the civil rights struggle for black people, there is mass public support for this cause. And it's wild to me that the more there is support for this kind of thing, the more there is anger and resentment towards Israel's genocide, the more this administration tries to deal with it with political repression. Even Glenn Greenwald is supporting him. It's wild. Wait, no, that's not wild at all. That's like perfectly normal. Glenn Greenwald has always been a free speech absolutist. This is like the one issue where he will unflinchingly shit on Israel over and over again. That's the one aspect where he hasn't lost his mind on. This is something that he's always been consistent on, regardless of who funds his operations. Matt Duss also talked about how Ann Coulter is outflanking the Anti-Defamation League, also known as the Apartheid Defense League, on this issue. There's almost no one I don't want to deport unless they've committed a crime. Isn't this a violation of the First Amendment? There's almost no one I don't want to deport, but unless they've committed a crime, isn't this a violation of the First Amendment? Like, Ann Coulter's like, I haven't seen a deportation I don't like. Okay? I have yet to encounter a deportation I dislike until this very moment. It's insane. Like, this person is a direct villain. Okay? Here's new information, a scoop from Prem at Zeteo, where Mahmoud Khalil, a Palestinian who helped lead negotiations between Columbia University and student protesters, had appealed to the school for protections from harassment and possibly immigration and customs enforcement agents 1 day before the Trump administration detained him Saturday. Emails obtained by Zeteo show. Most recent among the leaked messages was an email Khalil, a green card holder, sent to Columbia interim president Katrina Armstrong on March 7th. Since yesterday, I've been subjected to a vicious, coordinated, and dehumanizing doxing campaign led by Columbia affiliates Shai Davide and David Lederer, who, among others, have labeled me a security threat and called for my deportation. This is correct, by the way. The most annoying dipshits are celebrating this. They actively champion this, and the Trump administration gave them this as a gift. A violation of numerous American principles and American laws, by the way. Shai Davide says, Dear Secretary Rubio, thank you for your strong statements. Now we want to see strong action. Illegally taking over a college in which you are not even enrolled and distributing terrorist propaganda should be a deportable offense. No, because that's what Mahmoud Khalil from Columbia SJP did yesterday at Barnard College. This was from 4 days ago. And the DHS actually said, yeah, we'll do that. The Senate Judiciary Dems posted, free Mahmoud Khalil. And the White House responded with, this is the first arrest of many to come. The reason why they're saying that, by the way, once again, is because they hope to create a chilling effect on protests. If you're an American citizen, if you're an American Jew, okay, you should be on the fucking front lines. Straight up. There are overwhelming majorities of people that recognize what is going on. For the first time in American history, the majority of Democrats actually sympathize with the Palestinians over Israelis. That is a complete shift that I never thought would happen. Even if the Democratic Party does not listen to its base of support, it still does not change that reality that there are more people that absolutely recognize what the fuck is going on. And it's going to get worse. So it is our duty to protest against this, to resist against this in any way, shape, or form we can. Ramallah says so many people have no historical awareness and legitimately believe that it could not and would not happen again, but are unaware of the warning signs, so they just expect fascism to basically only show up when Trump himself says he's a fascist. I taught a few people about beer hall push, and they were shocked that they had never learned about it, and immediately were like, wait, didn't Trump do the same thing, Lamau? Yes. The Action Network demand the immediate release of Palestinian student activist Mahmoud Khalil from DHS detention has already collected 1.5 million letters, by the way. There is broad support for this. There is broad popular support for this. Releasing a Palestinian student activist, a Palestinian American student activist, is infinitely more popular than Donald fucking Trump. Okay? And arresting pro-Palestinian and anti-Zionist student activists is only going to make the Trump administration even more unpopular. FYI, Action Network is just a tool. This is from Deportation Defense. Yes. This is a letter campaign created by Deportation Defense. We'll post a link as well so you can also sign up and make these same demands as well. Yeah, this was the email that he sent to Columbia 3 days ago before he got before his deportation process started by ICE. Citing the Beitar post, Beitar is a right-wing Israeli harassment operation, not dissimilar to Canary Mission and many other Israeli Knesset grant-funded organizations that simply dox fucking American students on American college campuses without any sort of political or legal repercussions, by the way, and have greatly escalated post-October 7. If you remember, some of the first things that Canary Mission and all these other like groups did was bring to college campuses these massive fucking billboards on the back of trucks doxing college students for the crime of criticizing Israel. Beitar is one of the most right-wing versions of this, led by a guy who is a revenge pornographer, allegedly, And they were, of course, going after Khalil. Khalil asked Armstrong in his email, citing the Beitar post, with the stakes being so high, I ask you, as representatives of Columbia University's administration, how will you protect international students from doxing and from deportation? How will you protect these students' rights to free speech, expression, and association, rights provided for in the U.S. Constitution and Columbia's Code of Conduct, and stop the suppression and now potential criminalization of that speech and expression? Students' futures, their livelihoods, and now, without exaggerating, their lives are at risk. Yeah, Beitar is so right-wing that they fucking fought with Shai Davide in the past. Here's what Letitia James said. I'm extremely concerned about the arrest and detention of Mahmoud Khalil, an advocate and legal permanent resident of Palestinian descent. My office is monitoring the situation and work in contact with his attorney. Here's what the Columbia Office of the President just released, by the way. This was their reaction to everything that's going on. And yes, the law that the plan to deport pro-Hamas students relies on a 1952 law that targeted Jews. We'll talk about that as well, the irony inherent in this process. I write to you at a challenging moment for our community. Columbia University exists to serve the United States and the world by teaching, creating, and advancing knowledge. We pursue that mission through freedom of expression, blah, 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 blah. We will work tirelessly to fulfill our mission. We're taking a methodical and thoughtful approach to addressing the multitude of challenges ahead of us. Suck my fucking dick. We will support our community. I understand the distress that many of you are feeling about the presence of ICE agents in the streets around campus. I feel it too, and I'm working with our team to manage the response. Resources for students are listed below. We will follow the law, as has always been the case, and rumors suggesting that any member of Columbia leadership requested the presence of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents on or near the campus are false. It remains the longstanding practice of the university and the practice of cities and institutions throughout the country that law enforcement must have a judicial warrant to enter a non-public university areas, including residential university buildings. How'd they get there? We are deeply committed to free speech as a fundamental value, except for when you protest against Israel, in which case we have no commitment whatsoever to free speech, and we will let you get deported. I mean, this is all bullshit, okay? And then they have counseling and well-being resources. Do they have, other than counseling and religious life advisors or whatever, do they actually give you like an ACLU link in here on what to do when ICE comes knocking down your door? I don't see it. Maybe they did. Maybe they did. I don't see it, though. Beitar are the same ones who've been putting pages in people's pockets of pro-Palestinian activists, including Norm Finkelstein. The group cannot be any grosser than they are. That's who Columbia is working alongside ICE with. Yeah. Unsurprising that Fetterman is involved. We are strongly supportive of, said Glick, we are strongly supportive of Trump's administration's plan to deport jihadis who seek out to destroy America. Our campuses and our streets are filled with violent people who hate Jews and cannot coexist with Western society. On Wednesday, Glick was on Capitol Hill meeting with lawmakers, including pro-Israel Senator John Fetterman, Democrat from PA. A Zionist organization is compiling names of foreign students on student visas in the U.S. who spewed anti-Israel bile at campus protests and is hoping President-elect Trump will give the haters a one-way ticket back home. This is from the New York Post, by the way. That's why they're writing the article in this, in the English language, even though it is very close to how you would hear it from the original German, for the record. If you cannot comprehend how, if you cannot see what is going on, if you cannot recognize the writing on the wall and how we are actively becoming more and more militant, more and more right-wing, more and more dangerous, okay, more open to fascism, I don't know what to tell you. This is a telltale sign. I'm going to give you two examples here, by the way, two things that happened. One good news and one reason as to why why Khalil would have been placed in custody in a detention center in Jenna, the LaSalle Detention Center facility in Louisiana. Pablo Manrique from Migrant Insider reports, ICE often goes immigration judge shopping by putting detainees in detention centers under jurisdictions of courts that very rarely decide in favor of migrants. Jenna, LaSalle in Louisiana, where Mahmoud Khalil is held, is one such detention center. That is the reason why they sent him to LaSalle. And even then, it seems that a judge has blocked the Columbia pro-Palestinian protester organizer Mahmoud Khalil's removal from U.S. This is from the senior legal affairs reporter at Politico, Josh Gerstein. Apparently, a judge has blocked the pro-Palestinian protest organizer Mahmoud Khalil's removal from the U.S. pending further action on habeas petition, because it would be a violation of due process. But the very fact that, the very fact that this is happening, and before people get at me over this and be like, oh, well, what about the Democrats or whatever? This action is not being taken as it stands currently to start deporting people en masse. Okay. This action is being taken specifically to have a chilling effect, to tell people you will get punished criminally. And it is an extension of the previous administration's policy on the matter. 3,500 college students were arrested under the Biden administration for protesting against the state of Israel. 3,500 students were arrested in direct violation of the First Amendment. 3,500. If a liberal administration is going to allow that to happen, what the fuck did you think a Republican administration was going to do? And the reason for why those people got arrested was not because they were being truly disruptive or anything like that. The reason why, the 3 times the number of people that were arrested after January 6th, by the way, 3 times the number. January 6th, 1,000 people are arrested and convicted, okay, of crimes during the insurrection. 3,500 student protesters arrested under the Biden administration. And the reason for why they did that was specifically to say, you cannot protest against the state of Israel. If you do, we will find a way to fuck your lives up. They released them. They released the overwhelming majority of those, if not almost all of those protesters, but they arrested them regardless. And the reason for why they did that was specifically to create an environment where people understood that if you protest against Israel, there will be violent repercussions for you. Okay? Administrations in the past have never done so against Nazis, actual neo-Nazis, protesting on college campuses, protesting all around the country. The Trump administration prior actively defended neo-Nazis, as a matter of fact. So there were very fine people on both sides during Charlottesville, where a neo-Nazi traveled all the way from Ohio to Charlottesville and killed a counter-protester, an anti-fascist, by the name of Heather Heyer. Joe Biden claimed that Heather Heyer's murder in the hands of a white supremacist terrorist was the reason why he ran for office again. Make no mistake. And then Joe Biden oversaw some of the most brutal tactics implemented against peaceful demonstrators against the state of Israel post-October 7. In a matter of a year, in his last year in office, Joe Biden oversaw the arrest of 3,500 student protesters for the crime in air quotes, of protesting against the apartheid regime of Israel, actively conducting a genocide with our weapons, with our taxpayer-funded machines, and with our political cover in broad daylight, in front of all of your eyes. They even went so far as to ban TikTok, or at least attempt to ban TikTok, because TikTok was showing the truth to younger generations about the depravity and the horrifying nature of Israel's offensive genocidal campaign in the Gaza Strip. At no step did we ever take a deep breath and say, hey, we should probably reconsider our relationship. I didn't say we're on the verge of fascism. I'm saying fascism is here. And people will say, Hassan, fascism has always been here, but it is in your face, directly here. I'm worried about you, man. Do you think you're safe as a pro-Palestinian content creator? Man, this is inappropriate. Stop asking me this question, okay? It's inappropriate. I don't care. I don't know what else to say other than the fact that Mahmoud Khalil, regardless of the smears, the vicious smears, was not arrested for any real reason other than the fact that this administration did not like what he had to say about a foreign nation. That's it. He didn't violate any laws. He didn't even break any fucking rules. It is actually the current administration that's violating pre-existing rules and laws in an effort to deport him. Like, look at the Canary mission, dude. First of all, the Canary mission should be disbanded. Like, the fact that it exists is insane to me. But this is exactly what they've been doing. And they were doing this before the Trump administration, and they've greatly escalated these doxing campaigns after the Trump administration, knowing full well that Trump will play ball with them and maybe offer them a bone and deport a couple of these scary foreign students. What is this? Jewish, if not now, org founder Simone Zimmerman shares some platforms nods alongside anti-Semitic podcaster Hassan Piker, who complains people are hyper-focused on October 7th, labeling Hamas a terror org instead of the legitimate resistance and spreading misinformation like mass rapes. Yeah. Focus. You can suck my dick. Yeah, look at the scary the scary things that they were doing. Like, you have to be a schizo to watch this compilation. If this is the best you got for why this person should be deported, you are operating on so many different levels of mania. If this is personally like enough for you to say, oh, this is so scary, you are a psychopath. It's wild to me that there is something that happens when you like defend Israel and you become a Zionist, or you were always one, I don't know, but like you just have no way of understanding other human beings. You're just one note where you can like actively dox people, you can actively go after them, you can actively demand that the administration deport you, okay, for the crime of someone exercising their First Amendment rights against Israel doing a genocide. Like, how terrifying. You know what's fucking terrifying? Gestapo agents knocking down your door and taking you away in the middle of the night, not telling your 8-month pregnant wife where you are, and then entertaining the notion of revoking your green card status. That is actually terrifying. Not, ooh, these guys are banging drums and protesting against an apartheid state, a fucking foreign nation. That's not terrifying. That is expected. That is the right thing to do. And it should happen way more frequently. It should be happening every fucking day. It is insane. Like, what the hell are we doing, man? What is happening? Like, the fact that people even entertain this is psychotic. I support Palestine, but every country has the right to say who and who cannot be in the country. This is called a democracy, and you may not like it, but it's a fact of life. Every country that does things like this, yes, you fucking moron. You know who else did things like this? Nazi Germany. The fuck are you saying? Oh, you don't understand. Every country has the right to say who and who can't be in the country. You know? Yeah, they did do that, okay? They did that to the fucking Jews in Nazi Germany. The fuck are you saying? Was that appropriate? Do you think that it was all right? I'm sure there were plenty of fucking German dumbasses like you, okay? Living in Bavaria going, oh, well, you know, every country has a right to see who has the right to be there. Nice false equivalent. Why is that a false equivalence? Do you have a fucking brain cell that you can rub against another? It's not a false equivalence, you fucking moron. It is a one-to-one analog. Address what I said instead of going, nice false equivalence. When in doubt, pull the Nazi card. Oh my God, you have nothing. You fucking brainlet. You goddamn baboon. Holy shit. Address the argument and explain to me why the exact logical framework that you're operating off of is not a one-to-one application to Nazi Germany. You have nothing. You just resorted to insults? No, I didn't. I resorted to insults when you said nice false equivalence. I gave you a counterexample because I wanted to dignify you with a response, and you had no response. You just said nice false equivalence. Answer my comparison. Address the counter argument that I presented to you. Okay? If you have, it's not a false equivalence, explain why it's a false equivalence then. Explain why it's a false equivalence. You can't just say something is a false equivalence. You have to make an argument. Why are debate pedophiles so bad at debating? Why are debate perverts so fucking bad at debating? Debate pervertry cannot just be, oh, that's an ad hominem and move on. You can't just go, that's a false equivalence and move on. You have to describe why it is a false equivalence. You can't just say it is a false equivalence. Please entertain all of us with your counter. Tell me why it is a false equivalence without going, it's a false equivalence. It's a false equivalence because it's a false equivalence. Okay, that's a tautology. Explain why it is a false equivalence. You can't because you're a moron. You're going back to your fucking sex pestiny chat to try to get some counter narratives here, some counter examples. Quick, guys, give me some examples, please. What is the argument? You literally are seething. Holy shit. America's a democracy. Oh, I'm seething. So you have no argument. You have no counter example as to why it is a false equivalence. All you have is just saying it's false equivalence. That's it? You have no counter examples? You have no reason to claim it's a false equivalence? Now you've just moved the goalpost to you're seething. Lol. People voted for these people to be removed, so they should be removed. It's that simple. That's not how this works, buddy. Okay? I told you that in Nazi Germany, people made the exact same argument. Well, you know, it is what it is. These people actively get to choose who stays in this country and who doesn't. It's also additionally funny to say this because it is deeply unpopular to remove the citizenship status of an American green card holder because they criticize the state of Israel, especially at a time when, you know, sympathies have greatly and dramatically shifted in the favor of Palestinians. I highly doubt that this will be seen as a popular sentiment, but that's not the point right now. You're wrong on that front as well, but you have not, you don't even know what you're arguing, Lamau, word salad as. Zero people think you're making a brilliant point here. You are actively running away like the fucking coward that you are from the immediate retort you had. I dignified you with a response, and I said, why do you think it's a false equivalence? You could not entertain that even for a brief moment, and now you're just trying to pull the ripcord desperately because your brain is stunted, okay? You are both emotionally and intellectually stunted. That's it. Give me a fucking counter example. Tell me why it's a false equivalence. You can't, because it's not a false equivalence. This is projection, by the way. You don't even know what you're arguing for, Lamau. Word salad. Nazi Germany murdered millions of people. How can you possibly compare the two? Oh, dude. Was that what we were talking about? Is that why it's a false equivalence? Nazi Germany murdered millions of people. How can you possibly compare the two? I said that if you are a legal positivist, if you think, well, it's the law is the law, this is what people want. I told you, I gave you a historical example of when something that was truly heinous and truly considered to be an atrocity by today's standards was the law. It's legit. Now you're fucking trying to cry bully and go, it's legit an insult to the 6 million lives lost. Nobody in their right minds thinks modern America is similar to Nazi Germany. No, plenty of people do. It's just not after the final solution. This is before the final solution. But that's not the argument. That is not an adequate response. You are not actually presenting why this is a false equivalence. It's because you can't. But that's besides the point. That's why you had to resort to, it's insulting. That's not an argument. Saying something is insulting is not an argument. Especially when you consider from your framework that was the law. In Germany, that was the law. You haven't brought a single argument, my guy. You just said Nazi. Okay, well, I think I'm done entertaining fucking this moron. I could literally restate the argument a million times over, and I think it would not penetrate the security barrier that you have up there. It's empty inside, but there's a fucking thick-ass skull. You will never be able to understand the normal human language. It's just not going to happen for you. I can confirm you gave arguments that just went right over his head. I know. Sometimes you just genuinely cannot argue with people who are too stupid to argue. This is one of those instances. It is what it is. And then that person will go back and be like, Hassan hates dissent. Hassan hates dissent. He banned me because he's too afraid of good arguments. No, we're banning you because not only are you fucking too stupid to communicate, okay, but you're also incredibly fucking narcissistic. A real case of Dunning-Kruger where you unironically bit off more than you can chew and were too stupid to understand even the fact that you bit off more than you could chew in this process. The railers will get the belt. Speaking of people you genuinely cannot reason with, what is this? Well, I don't even care about this. Speaking of people you genuinely cannot reason with, Sam Cedar did a Jubilee video, which we will be watching as well, because apparently Sam also did the same thing that I just experienced right here, but in real time against people who actively had no shame and associated their faces and names with some of the stupidest things you've ever heard. Yes, also known as the Jube. Let's wrap this up and move on.
Khalil's arrest signifies an escalation in President Trump's vow to deport.
I have one critique for Hasanabi. You have a tendency when simplifying your arguments to less informed audiences to make conclusionary statements. What? Okay.
Foreign students.
You didn't explain why this is a criticism.
Imprison agitators involved in protests against Israel's war in Gaza. Last week, Columbia University also learned that the Trump administration pulled $400 million in grants and contracts, citing the school's failure to squelch anti-Semitism here on campus. It is unclear where Khalil is being held. His attorney has said he may have been transferred as far as the state of Louisiana. Reporting live from Morningside Heights, Christina Fan, CBS News, New York.
Okay, Christina, thank you. A graduate student at Columbia University arrested by ICE officials for his role in the pro-Palestinian protests taking place on that campus last year.
Now, this comes as the Trump administration is threatening to revoke green cards and visas of those who support Hamas. Let's get right to Good Day's Briella Tomasetti. She is at the Ivy League school this morning with the latest. Briella, good morning.
Tashani and Dan, good morning. This arrest is the first publicly known deportation effort under President Trump's new plan to remove alleged Hamas sympathizers from college campuses.
Alleged Hamas sympathizers. Please, man, what are you guys doing? Like, please have bare minimum basic human decency. Please, I beg of you. Okay? Please, please. Under no circumstances do you have to adopt the framing that this insane right-wing government is deploying here, okay? Holy fuck, dude. Jesus Christ. Oh, my God. Alleged Hamas sympathizers.
Campuses. Trump has also canceled $400 million in federal grants to Columbia University, quote, due to the school's continued inaction in the face of persistent harassment of Jewish students. Federal immigration authorities arrested Columbia graduate student Mahmoud Khalil at his university-owned apartment over the weekend, doubling down on the Trump administration's promise to crack down on anti-Semitism. Khalil, a permanent U.S. resident with a green card, is a pro-Palestinian activist who played a major role in protests that swept Columbia University's campus last spring. A new executive order signed by President Trump calls for the deportation of resident aliens, including students with visas, who broke laws during anti-Israel protests following the October 7, 2023 terrorist attacks. Khalil's attorney, Amy Greer, told the Associated Press he was being detained at an immigration detention facility in Elizabeth, New Jersey. She says when his wife tried to visit yesterday, she learned he wasn't there. Khalil's whereabouts are currently unclear. While speaking over the phone with one of the ICE agents during the arrest, Greer was told the agency was acting on State Department orders to revoke Khalil's student visa and green card. In a post yesterday to X, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the Trump administration will be revoking the visas and/or green cards of Hamas supporters in America so they can be deported. The Department of Homeland Security added that Khalil forfeited his rights to remain in the U.S., alleging he, quote, led activities aligned to Hamas, a designated terrorist organization.
If he was promoting violence of any sort, then it would be somewhat reasonable.
Khalil Sr. on the right served as a...
Even then it wouldn't. He's a green card holder, okay? No. If he's promoting violence, if he is truly promoting violence, if he's like urging a riot in a real situation, okay? Let's say there's a Nazi and they're urging violence at a violent Nazi rally, which of course happens all the time, by the way, with no prosecution whatsoever because they say First Amendment. Okay. But in that process, then you can't just apprehend them, lock them in jail, and then try to remove their citizenship status. You can't do that. That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. Even when there's due process, I still do not believe that you can just remove the citizenship status of someone, okay? You can work within the existing legal structure that is right there for American citizens, green card holders and natural-born U.S. citizens alike. I'm getting confused when you keep saying citizenship status. Are we talking about green cards or citizens? Green card holders are also citizens. Like, they are migrants with legal documentation, okay? It is the closest you can get to, in terms of a status, it is the closest you can get to without being a natural-born U.S. citizen. Like, what are we talking about? They're a legal permanent resident.
Student negotiator during last spring's protests as they bargained with administrators over an end to the tent encampment set up on campus. Since then, he's faced sanctions at the university for helping to organize a march where activists...
You are de facto a citizen when you have a green card, okay? De facto, not legally. It's not legally the same. It's the one step. It is the one step before you have permanent citizenship. Not true, Hassan? Wait, what? Yes, it is true. It is, you are de facto seen as a, I'm not saying you are legally a citizen. I'm saying, listen to my words. You're basically a fucking citizen. Hassan, this motherfucker does not know what de facto means. I do know. Well, it seems like you're deliberately being obtuse then, even if you do understand. Can you explain de facto? It is hard to follow all this as a foreigner. It means, yes, de facto means in practice and functionally. You are in practice and functionally a citizen. You are one step removed. You are one step removed from being a full-blown citizen. On your day-to-day experience, you are basically a citizen. It is also known as a permanent resident card. There are lots of misunderstandings here that can be easily cleared up. Here's usimmigration.org. What is the difference between a green card and U.S. citizenship? Permanent residents have the right to work and live in the U.S. indefinitely, as well as the right to petition for close family members for a green card. However, because green card's relatives are considered preference relatives, this process takes considerably longer than for a U.S. citizen. Permanent residents continue to be citizens of another country, which means they do not have a right to a U.S. passport. Lawful permanent residents do not have the right to vote in the U.S. elections and may lose their status if the U.S. government considers they've abandoned their status by spending more than 6 months outside the United States, for example. If a lawful permanent resident plans on leaving the U.S. for a period exceeding 1 year, they must first obtain a permit if they do not wish to abandon their status. After a certain amount of time, permanent residents can apply for U.S. citizenship, also known as the naturalization process. These are the major distinctions between someone who is a naturalized U.S. citizen versus a green card holder. Now, if you may have noticed something. You may have noticed something significant here, which is that these are simply laws, okay? They're just things written on a piece of paper, and whoever chooses to enforce them get to dictate whether or not they are valid, permissible, and will be followed through on. And if you noticed, laws can be violated. Laws can be violated by individual actors, but they can also be violated by those in positions of power, for example. And when those in positions of power violate those laws or actively seek out actively try to change those pre-existing laws, as the Trump administration is trying to do right now, new laws will be implemented, which is why we always say there's a difference between something being legal and something being moral. There's a difference between something being good and something being legal. And you might have noticed that the Trump administration very clearly is trying to change the laws, or at least starting the process of changing the laws by actively undermining it. Unlike green card holders, U.S. citizens cannot be deported from the United States unless that is they committed fraud to obtain their green card or citizenship. Yes. Make sure chat knows that his detainment was indeed sudden and kept secret. Last night, his family and lawyers didn't know where he was taken and his wife was threatened. Yes. Mahmoud Khalil, a legal resident of U.S. and Columbia University student, has been illegally detained by the U.S. government and his whereabouts are unknown to even his wife and lawyers. They basically kidnapped him.
Activists glorified Hamas and for playing a substantial role in the circulation of social media posts criticizing Zionism. Columbia University shared a statement with Fox 5 saying, Columbia is committed to complying with all legal obligations and supporting our student body and campus community. We are also committed.
Dude, the local media coverage of this is insane, by the way. They're just basically saying it's awesome and it's good, and these guys love Hamas, and they were doing material support for Hamas, and it's awesome that the Trump administration is deporting one of them.
To the legal rights of our students and urge all members of the community to be respectful of those rights. His attorney told us, we will vigorously be pursuing Mahmoud's rights in court and will continue our efforts to right this terrible and inexcusable and calculated wrong committed against him. And according to the Columbia Daily Spectator, starting today, gate access for university ID holders, registered guests, and alumni will be limited to just 3 entry points, including the one here behind me, in anticipation of any future protests. But for now, we're live here in Morningside Heights. Stan and Tashani, we'll send it back to you.
Briella, thank you.
Are the ADL's anti-Semitism status credible? The listening post. They're not. The answer is no. Here is a good analog. The Rosenstrasse protest is considered to be the significant event in German history, as it is the only mass public demonstration by Germans in the Third Reich against the deportation of Jews. The protest on Rosenstrasse, Rose Street, took place in Berlin during February and March 1943. This demonstration was initiated and sustained by non-Jewish wives and relatives of Jewish men and Mischlinge, those of mixed Jewish and Aryan heritage. Their husbands have been targeted for deportation based on the racial policy of Nazi Germany and detained in the Jewish community house on Rosenstrasse. The protest, which occurred over the course of 7 days, continued until the men being held were released by the Gestapo. The protest by the women of the Rosenstrasse led to the release of approximately 1,800 Berlin Jews. From the onset of his power, Hitler dedicated himself to fully accomplishing his idea of the ideal government. In his eyes, a model government drew conscious consent from its strength and three pillars of authority. And Mein Kampf, he asserts that a government who has mastered popularity, force, and social tradition may be regarded as unshakable. Social acceptance was integral to the Nazi Party's continued power. Before beginning to deport Jews as a part of the final solution, the regime made a trial deportation of German Jews and had their German neighbors studied attentively, who, in a win for the regime, had hardly noticed their missing neighbors. Many Germans also willingly condemned Jews to the Gestapo, the Nazi secret police, often for very little personal gain. It was partially an environment of terror, pushing Germans to self-police. However, a large number of Germans went well beyond that. Survival demanded to assist the regime. Laws against German-Jewish relations implemented by the regime were precedented by reports made by citizens of what they considered to be antisocial or deviant behavior. In 1935, following a slew of reports to the Gestapo, in July, the Nuremberg race laws excluded German Jews from Reich citizenship and prohibited them from marrying or having sexual relations with persons of German or German-related blood at any point in the future. The Nuremberg laws, aimed at preventing further racial mixing, did not dissolve existing marriages in deference to the social and religious sanctity and privacy of marriage. By December 1942, 27,744 intermarried Jews were registered in Germany. Initially, German women married more Jewish men than their male counterparts. After the consolidation of power under Hitler, more German men had divorced their partners than women, so the majority of intermarried relationships were between a German wife and her Jewish husband. These women had long faced social and societal pressure from their communities to divorce their husbands long before the Holocaust. Therefore, when the campaign against their husbands began, German women married to Jewish men were already resistant to the outward pressure. As they encountered many Jews in their day-to-day lives, German women were not susceptible to propaganda's evil, abstract depictions, causing the regime to turn to force. In Berlin, the majority of Jews spared from deportation were those in intermarried relationships or those working in armaments factories. Since 1933, these intermarriages were seen by the Nazis as their certain victims, and the regime tried with all of its might to get rid of them. However, these intermarried Jews were woven tightly into their communities, and the regime, cautious of antagonizing non-Jewish Germans and injuring public morale, had delayed. Yes, Israel literally has laws in its books currently to stop that sort of thing from happening as well. So anyway, Casey Neistat, what the hell? Does Casey Neistat not know that Sneeko is a... Casey Neistat just retweeted Sneeko updates. Sneeko plays a 27-second video by Casey Neistat that motivates him to always work hard. Casey, Sneeko is a fucking Holocaust denier. What the hell? That's wild. All right. Let's see what Philip had to say about
It
this.
is trying to deport a well-known Palestinian activist despite him having a green card, the first of what Trump has promised will be many, and it sparked a massive scandal. What you need to know about Canada's incoming Prime Minister Mark Carney, including his first words for Donald Trump. Drewski and OBJ have issued quick denials after just being named in a Diddy lawsuit. We're talking about all that and much more on today's brand new Philip DeFranco Show. You daily dive into the news, how it's being covered, and how people are reacting to it. But first, a quick announcement. I just made an awesome mini March drop live for you over at beautifulbastard.com, where right now you can snag yourself a green card, a move that many experts say is a violation of free speech rights under the First Amendment. Right? And this is also incredibly significant because it appears to mark the first publicly known arrest under Trump's broader promise to revoke student visas and deport non-citizen students who joined pro-Palestine campus protests last year, with him claiming that the students no longer had the right to stay in the country because they supported Hamas. And while this is something that Trump has been promising for a while, this latest news notably comes after he brought this whole thing to the next level last week with him writing on Truth Social. All federal funding will stop for any college, school, or university that allows illegal protests. Agitators will be imprisoned or permanently sent back to the country from which they came, and adding American students will be permanently expelled or, depending on the crime, arrested. Though this, as many have noted...
Don't change the Drewski story. Dude, I think the claims being made against Drewski in a court document where they literally call him Drewski and not his fucking government name were made about him potentially going to a Diddy party in 2018 when Drewski was not a famous person. People need to be a little bit more careful with whatever the fuck they see on Twitter, okay? Drewski's response. This allegation is a fabricated lie. I wasn't a public figure in 2018. I was broke, living with my mom without any connections to the entertainment industry at the time of this allegation. So the inclusion of my name is truly outlandish. My heart breaks for actual victims of abuse, but I'm fully confident that the evidence will expose this falsehood and the individuals who are maliciously trying to game the legal system that peddle false narratives. Yeah, and there's also like basically memes. Like I saw some of the fucking insane shit. Is a government name and a stage name, but Clout, they called them both. It literally says a government name and Drewski. It's a government name and a stage name. Yeah. Also, perhaps more importantly, is the fact that defendant Drewski then caught himself sliding over plaintiff's oiled body and off the bed while defendant Drewski's 2018, they invited him though. What? Like, I don't know if there's Hassan, don't do this, man. I'll wait for the trial. His behavior has always been odd to me. Yeah, I agree with that. His behavior being odd. Wait, they do name him and it happened in 2021? Okay, if it happened recently, then that's different. If it happened in 2018, it's fucking ridiculous. Obviously, nobody's fucking inviting Drewski in 2018. Can we litigate this later? We were talking about the erosion of the First Amendment rights. Yes. Okay, we'll get back to it in a second. It just smelled weird to me. That's all I'm saying. Hassan believed what he read on Twitter. Wait, what? No, I read some of the pieces that they put forth in the accusations, and there is I said this about the Jay-Z stuff too, chat. Jay-Z, not a fan. Okay, not a big fan of Jay-Z, and he has literally been very famous and very powerful and very wealthy for quite some time. And not only that, but he certainly went to Diddy parties. Okay. Having said that, the allegations that were launched against him, in spite of all of that, came across as a little, it just, it didn't smell right. That's all I'm saying. And I felt the same way about, I felt the same way about these allegations, or at least some of that, at least what I've seen. And I'll cover it extensively afterwards. This is not a defense of Drewski. I don't give a fuck about defending Drewski. Okay. Calm down. Yeah. I watched Should Have Been Loved. That doesn't mean that I'm going to fucking entertain someone who allegedly did heinous crimes at a Diddy party. Okay. Let's continue.
That the White House hasn't really clarified what they consider to be an illegal protest, given the fact that these activities are usually protected under the First Amendment.
Also, once again, we're quite literally talking about the American government undermining First Amendment rights, possibly taking away the green card status of an American lawful resident, legal resident. And, you're over here being like, someone is in the chat being like, talk about Ayup Lovely. Like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? We're doing news right now. Okay. We'll get to other shit later.
But regardless, the administration has made it clear that Colombia is its first major target, with it announcing on Friday that it had canceled $400 million in grants and contracts to the school, and now going after one of the most prominent protest leaders there, and specifically the activist in question.
Yeah, a judge temporarily blocked the deportation. I know. I already covered it. A federal judge has temporarily blocked Trump administration efforts to deport a Palestinian activist who helped lead the protests at Columbia University.
Is Mahmoud Khalil, a former Columbia graduate student with Palestinian heritage who graduated with a master's in December. And while he was still at the university last year, he became a leader of the protest movement, with Khalil describing his role to reporters as a negotiator and spokesman for the school's pro-Palestine.
I don't agree with him. I don't agree with supporting Hamas, but if he's supporting Palestine, that's the right me and my boys fought for. Bro, even like Patriot HVAC services, listen to me, okay? Like, first of all, anyone who supports Palestinians are going to be branded as supporting Hamas. And secondly, you still can't fucking do that. Okay? It's ridiculous. What do you mean? You just can't be like, all right, sorry, RIP. Oh, you're supporting the IRA. You're going to get deported. Ridiculous.
Palestinian group. And according to a statement from his lawyer, Amy Greer, over the weekend, Khalil was stopped by ICE agents who told him his student visa had been revoked, and saying that when he told them that he was a lawful permanent resident with a green card because his wife is a U.S. citizen, they detained him anyway. And this is, Greer also said that she doesn't know where Khalil's even being held. But they're saying that she was told Sunday morning that he was being detained in Elizabeth, New Jersey, a fact that was also listed on an ICE detainee locator website, but then adding, when his wife, a U.S. citizen who is 8 months pregnant and was threatened with arrest as well by the ICE agents last night, tried to visit him there today, she was told he is not detained there. And so now you have Greer saying she received reports that he may have been transferred as far away as Louisiana. And several outlets have also since reported that records suggest that Khalil is indeed being held in custody in Louisiana. The attorney then going on to say that she has filed a habeas corpus petition on Khalil's behalf, challenging his arrest and detention, and adding, "We will vigorously be pursuing Mahmoud's rights."
Yeah, Glenn Greenwald is correct on this, by the way. Also, just a quick First Amendment review. People are allowed to praise whoever they want. I can stand up every day and say I love Al-Qaeda. I can argue Hamas has the right to use violence to resist Israel. I can urge the U.S. to nuke Iran or Peru. This is called free speech. This guy. Non-citizens don't get the benefits of the Bill of Rights. The Constitution is for U.S. citizens. That's ridiculous.
In court, and will continue our efforts to right this terrible and inexcusable and calculated wrong committed against him. And with that, saying that the arrest follows the U.S. government's open repression of student activism and political speech, specifically targeting students at Columbia University for criticism of Israel's assault on Gaza, and adding the U.S. government has made clear that they will use immigration enforcement as a tool to suppress that speech. But as far as exactly why Khalil's being detained, that remains unclear right now. Right now, with that, I'll say in a statement last night, a spokeswoman for the Department of Homeland Security said that he was arrested in, quote, support of President Trump's executive orders prohibiting anti-Semitism, adding Khalil-led activities aligned to Hamas, a designated terrorist organization, and saying ICE and the Department of State are committed to enforcing President Trump's executive orders and to protecting U.S. national security. With also Secretary of State Marco Rubio sharing a link on X to an AP article about Khalil in writing, we will be revoking the visas and/or green cards of Hamas supporters in America so they can be deported. And then today, we saw Trump himself chiming in on Truth Social, writing that Khalil had been apprehended and that his arrest was just the first of many to come, and adding that his administration knows of more students who have engaged in what he called pro-terrorist, anti-Semitic, anti-American activity, and claiming without evidence there that many are not students, they are paid agitators. With Trump then going on to say, we will find, apprehend, and deport these terrorist sympathizers from our country, never to return again. But very notably here, none of those official statements have said what specific crimes Khalil had actually been charged with. And that ends up being super significant because experts say that it is true that DHS can revoke green cards and deport their holders for a wide range of criminal activity, including support for a terror group. And while the agency's statement seems to indicate that they are trying to revoke his green card on those grounds, it's been widely reported, including in the same AP article Rubio shared, that Khalil—
This is completely ridiculous, by the way, just for the record, okay? If you are a green card holder or even legally on U.S. soil, you still have a right to a trial, number one, and you also still can express free speech. Like, what do you mean? It is ridiculous. It is completely ridiculous. The idea that you could just like not do any of those things is, or that the American government has a right to do this is fucking insane. Okay. Yeah. Here, Glenn Greenwald is right on this as well. It's really alarming how many Americans falsely think the U.S. Constitution only applies to U.S. citizens. It is a restriction on U.S. government actions and applies to all people legally on U.S. soil. Otherwise, even people illegally on U.S. soil, actually, as a matter of fact. But definitely to all people legally on U.S. soil. Otherwise, the U.S. government could mass arrest all tourists who it concludes has bad views. Like, what the fuck? Yeah, we're just going to torture you guys because we decided that we don't like what you have to say. Yeah, Noah literally just texted me as you... Oh my God, that's so funny. Noah just texted me this as chat also tweeted it at me. Or chat sent me this tweet. Your moment of zen. Please close the Overton... it's Crackhead Barbie with Norm Finkelstein at a release Mahmoud Khalil protest in New York.
Khalil hasn't actually been charged with a crime. Right? And according to the AP, his arrest appears to stem from an investigation by a Columbia University office that has brought disciplinary charges against many, with Khalil potentially facing sanctions for helping to organize a, quote, unauthorized marching event where participants glorified Hamas's October 7th attack, as well as playing what they called a substantial role in circulating social media posts criticizing Zionism in addition to other acts of alleged discrimination. But as of right now, from what we've seen, those are just allegations under investigation. And even if he's found to be culpable, we're talking about disciplinary action from the university, not necessarily anything with actual immediate legal implications. Which is why with all this, you have so many experts questioning the legality of this move and some just calling it blatantly unconstitutional. Right? And so with all this, we've seen many arguing that he's just being detained for protesting and expressing views protected by free speech, and that criticism notably has even come from within the halls of Columbia. We're seeing the director of the Immigrants' Rights Clinic at Columbia Law School saying that revoking Khalil's green card in retaliation for his public speech, that is prohibited by the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. With one legal expert even going a step further, telling CBS, if he's a green card holder, slam dunk, there's no way...
Free speech has never been a thing, so why are we focusing on this? Is free speech for the ruling class? That's what it's always been. Chad, should watch a cuck philosophy video on it? Yeah, that's really stupid, okay? I understand that, and I understand how historically this is not applied, but it doesn't matter because the principle is still there. The theory is still there. You should use it to try and defend people from being falsely fucking detained and deported, okay? Like, this is the thing that I don't understand. The institutions that remain for the time being should still be used to mitigate further harm. Like, what are we talking about? I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, in theory, free speech actually has never been applied towards those who have any sort of like radical changes that are at the behest of the public. Especially when they're directly against the interests of capital or whatever. Yeah, I know. I know that. You think I don't know that? Of course I fucking know that. It doesn't matter. You think I give a fuck about, for example, the structural hurdles that the Democratic Party had to withstand with regular frequency when they were in charge? No. I told them, I urged them to boulder over it. But now that they're not in charge, I will actively urge them to use those same structural hurdles to limit the scope and power of the Republican fascist administration. While they're there, you should use them, you know? I abhor gun violence. I'm not a fan of gun violence, but if someone's fucking, coming into my house trying to kill me and I got a gun, I'm probably going to use it, okay?
To arrest him. He had not been charged with a crime, or if he's, if there's something more than that, really there's no way. Number one, because you're dealing with a legal resident alien, which means you're dealing with the green card holder who has a lot of rights in our country. Right? And this is, you've had others questioning what legal authority the Trump administration would even have to revoke green cards, noting that usually such an action would require a hearing before an immigration judge. But then, of course, beyond what the experts have been saying, we've also seen a massive reaction to the arrest online, with one example being a petition for his release getting more than 1 million signatures online as of recording. Many also slamming the move in posts, including big names like Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who tweeted, "If the federal government can disappear a legal U.S. permanent resident without reason or warrant, then they can disappear U.S. citizens too. Anyone, left, right, or center, who has highlighted the importance of constitutional rights and free speech should be sounding the alarm now." And to her point there, we've seen people across the political spectrum raising concerns. I mean, for example, you even had right-wing Ann Coulter tweeting, "There's almost no one I don't want to deport, but unless they've committed a crime, isn't this a violation of the First Amendment?" But also, very notably on the other side, we've seen plenty of people and groups praising this move, including the Columbia Jewish Alumni Association, which applauded Khalil's detention and
It's so disgusting, dude. It's so shameless. Like, supporting a fascist administration doing Gestapo-style shit as a Jewish organization is insane, dude. You are so cooked, brother. You are so brain broken. Holy fuck. Like, oh my God.
a series of posts on X, with him claiming that he was a ringleader of the chaos at Columbia. You also had the Anti-Defamation League cheering on the arrest, writing, "We appreciate the Trump administration's broad, bold set of efforts to counter campus anti-Semitism, and this action further illustrates that resolve by holding alleged perpetrators responsible for their actions." Though notably, even they seem to acknowledge the questionable legal ground here, adding that any deportation, action, or revocation of a green card or visa must be undertaken in alignment with required due process protections. Right, notably, we ended up seeing the ADL getting some flack for that post from many, including major commentators like Hassan Piker, who shared that post and wrote, "The ADL thinks it's okay to revoke the green card of student activists." This is supposed to be a civil rights organization, by the way. But for now, that is where we are. Of course, this is a developing situation. Things are subject to change. And so while we keep an eye on this, in the meantime, I got...
Lol, you're advocating for terrorism just like the person who was deported. Might want to change your rhetoric. Suck my fucking dick, bitch. Okay? Suck it dry from the back. You understand me? Suck my fucking dick, you dumb bitch. Imagine coming in here to be like, yeah, that's right. You better fucking recognize, dude. Trump is going to come after you too. You baby-brained coward. You can sit around and hope, okay? And maybe it will happen, but that will never change your fucking moral depravity, okay? I am just one fucking person. I'm just one guy. That will never change the fact that you are a repugnant little coward egging on a fucking fascist administration. It is because in your heart you know that you are supporting baby killers, okay? You are supporting it, and deep down inside there's a little person in you that you're trying to fucking silence desperately, that is telling you maybe it's not right, maybe it's not appropriate, okay? What's real terrorism in this process, you think? Terrorizing green card holders for the crime of hurting Israel's feelings as it's conducting a genocide? What's real terrorism? Actively murdering babies with American weapons? Or resisting against that? Dipshits. Yeah, keep hoping that the Trump administration will pack up all of the naysayers. One day, there will not be a single person to defend you when you are in the crosshairs, okay? You should be lucky that people like myself and many others in progressive spaces will unconditionally fight for your rights, regardless. We'll do the work necessary, even when you don't recognize what the fuck is going on, dumbass. And maybe we'll fail. There have been many failures, such as this one, throughout history. But you certainly will not have an easy go at it. I promise. Are the ADL's anti-Semitism stats credible from the Listening Post? Let's take a look.
ADL is in the news and on the front lines. The rejection of anti-Zionism and anti-Israel sentiment.
The Anti-Defamation League, the ADL, says its annual conference is the world's largest summit on anti-Semitism and hate.
Wow, 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 wow.
The event is a showcase of the pull that the ADL has.
Thank you, ADL, for the work that you do for all of us.
It's one of the most well-funded and best-known NGOs in the United States. Its summit takes place in New York, where the ADL is headquartered, and big-name speakers from politics, entertainment, and social media come in for a turn at the podium.
Yes, never is now.
Leading the extravaganza is CEO Jonathan Greenblatt. He's been the frontman of the ADL for a decade, and he's a frequent voice in the media.
Joining us now is Jonathan Greenblatt, the CEO of the Anti-Defamation League.
Thanks so much for being here on this day.
We see Jonathan Greenblatt on cable news programs with such incredible regularity, you would think there's nobody else available.
What do you think these social media platforms are supposed to do? What's the responsible thing to do?
He's ubiquitous.
Trump had me doing Gestapo shit for a foreign country. How cuck can you get, OMG? I don't think it's just for a foreign country. It is being implemented at the behest of a foreign country right now. But I think the purpose of this is more nefarious than what you think is going on. This isn't just Donald Trump being cucked to Israel. This is what is otherwise known as a trial balloon, okay? They're trying to see what they can get away with. There are already plenty of homegrown institutions that have spent a good deal of time and capital on persecuting and maybe even simultaneously prosecuting people that have ever spoken out against Israel. Trump is just simply using this existing network of otherwise liberal-oriented organizations. That's it. But if you think the goal is to simply silence just pro-Palestinian speech and never move the existing framework to whoever is against the Trump administration or against the growing fascist movement in this country, you are wrong. The same exact trial balloon principle was utilized when in the lame duck proceedings in the last Senate session, in the last Congress session, the Democrats, alongside Republicans, voted for a bill that would give the Trump administration's Department of Treasury, okay, powers to declare any 501c3 that they wish to do so a terrorist organization and remove their 501c3 status, their philanthropy status. If your 501c3 status is removed, you can no longer get donations because they're no longer tax deductible donations. It will greatly limit the amount of fundraising you can engage in. And the Democrats, because of their insane pro-Israel attitude, without any care or consideration as to how the Trump administration was signaling they would use this expansive power against advocacy groups, turned around and voted for it. The 501c3 killer bill. Why did they do that initially? They did it because they thought, oh, they'll go after all the pro-Palestinian groups. And because the Democratic Party loves the state of Israel, they didn't even think about the other repercussions that might come out of this, especially if this awesome power is given to the likes of Donald Trump. They didn't realize that it was go after Act Blue, for example. You know? No, they didn't think about it, I promise, which is why they went back and, with public pressure, refused to vote on it, even after they had initially voted in favor of it. That to me is a really great demonstration of the nearsighted, idiotic nature of the Democratic Party, especially in the House of Representatives. That also, I think, shows perfectly how Trump will and the Republicans will utilize pre-existing pre-existing, preset organizations and liberals entertaining the notion of like attacking pro-Palestinian groups in a way to get even more power. Okay? That's it. They will start by saying, oh, we're just going after anti-Semites. Who's an anti-Semite? Anyone we've decided is an anti-Semite is an anti-Semite. Anyone who's ever said anything about Israel is an anti-Semite. But they won't stop there. This will be the new McCarthyist trials. That is what they're gearing up for. And anyone who doesn't recognize that, even if they're pro-Israel, anyone who doesn't fucking recognize that is an absolute moron. Okay? Especially American Jews. If you're an American Jew and you support the state of Israel so much so that you are celebrating decisions like this from the Trump administration, I'm letting you know, maybe in the interim, it'll be people like Mahmoud Khalil that get deported or get falsely prosecuted and persecuted and will face severe criminal repercussions unjustly. Maybe the next step will be people like myself, Twitch streamers that you don't like, okay? But if you think that you are fucking safe, you're the dumbest person on the planet, okay? You are the dumbest motherfucker on the planet. I cannot even begin to explain this to you. You are so fucking stupid if you think as a Zionist Jew in the United States of America that eventually these exact same institutions and the exact same abuse of law that you are currently championing will not fucking come around and first arrest, apprehend, and prosecute your immediate relatives for the crime of being anti-Zionist, and then you for the crime of being Jewish. You're a fucking moron. Okay? That's it. This has nothing to do with actually defending the Israeli state and everything to do with everything to do with creating a network to apprehend and persecute people for demonstrating speech you don't like. Jesus Christ. It'll be far too late at that point, too.
It's partly because he gives the media what they want.
Disturbing rise of extremism. Israel's a country that faces relentless terror attacks.
I worry about this every day.
Every time he comes on, he's speaking about a crisis, and that language is appealing to the press.
Anti-Zionism, I've long said, is anti-Semitism. I was wrong. Anti-Zionism is genocide.
Jonathan Greenblatt is a very well-connected
anti-Zionism is genocide. TOS at 255. Thank you.
Political operative. And he's riding this wave of the ADL's name having unwarranted credibility with the media.
And if you wouldn't tolerate it, if someone's wearing a swastika on their arm, I'm sorry, you shouldn't tolerate it if they're wearing a keffiyeh.
Yeah, he made a comparison between a swastika and a keffiyeh, dude. Freak ass bitch. Truly. I just, civil rights organization, by the way. Freak.
All right, Jonathan Greenblatt, thank you so much.
Greenblatt suggested that tolerating people wearing the Palestinian keffiyeh, a basic symbol of Palestinian culture, that is tantamount to tolerating people who are wearing swastikas. He speaks...
For those of you who don't understand, okay, there is no moral equivalence between Nazi Germany and fucking demonstrating your support for Palestinian emancipation. Do you understand? It is actually infinitely closer in practice and in theory that to make a it's an infinitely more apt comparison to make comparisons between Nazi Germany and the state of Israel. Okay, Jesus Christ.
Very authoritatively and confidently, but he uses that confidence to aggressively weaponize the charge of anti-Semitism in order to silence any criticism of Israel.
We wrote to the ADL for a response to this characterization of its work, that the organization and its CEO label criticism of Israel as anti-Semitic. We didn't get a response, and that didn't come as a surprise. Greenblatt has made clear what he thinks of Al Jazeera's output.
The Al Jazeera effect. So pumping propaganda 24/7, across people's cell phones.
Yeah, the propaganda is simply showing people unfiltered what Israel is doing to Palestinians, by the way. That's the propaganda. The propaganda here, okay, he's using it as a pejorative, right? Propaganda here from Jonathan Greenblatt is just like one of the few outlets that genuinely shows what the fuck Israel is up to. That's what's so unimaginable. That's so unacceptable.
On their television screens.
The ADL was founded in 1913 when waves of anti-Semitism were sweeping across Europe and the United States, and just 3 decades before the rise of Hitler in Germany. The ADL now calls itself the world's leading expert
There was TOS. I skipped it.
on anti-Semitism. On its website, the organization lists its activities, and its studies on anti-Semitism have become a fixture in American media.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you right now, the main question here is, are the ADL's anti-Semitism stats credible? The answer, unfortunately, is no. It is supposed to be the premier and perhaps one of the most important organizations to combat anti-Semitism, okay? And with all of the esteem that they have, they've basically squandered their reputation, what remained of their reputation, and are completely insane. Why? Because they are one of the most vicious, overt bullies that actively undermines their status as a civil rights organization by routinely conflating anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism, as Jonathan Greenblatt did here. And their fucking audits literally are just like anyone that is wearing a keffiyeh, someone who said free Palestine, someone who said from the river to the sea, Palestine should be free, regardless of whether they're Jewish or Christian or Muslim, Arab, Palestinian, doesn't matter. When you do that, yes, you'll get these incredible reports about anti-Semitism exploding. And the irony, of course, is that anti-Semitism is exploding in the United States of America. That's what's so crazy about it. So at a time when a real institution that tracks anti-Semitism is needed the most, the ADL is squandering that reputation that they previously had by actively using it as an offensive weapon of propaganda and greatly exaggerating the anti-Semitic incidents by tacking on pro-Palestinian sentiment into actual audits of real anti-Semitic incidents, all while simultaneously defending real anti-Semitic incidents like Elon Musk ripping the fucking Sig Heil.
Big increase in anti-Semitic behavior in Florida, that according to the Anti-Defamation League.
You have just finished a report the ADL has on how many incidents we saw in 2018.
We're at historic numbers.
It is horrible what is happening. I know that you are tracking more incidents.
A troubling new survey from the Anti-Defamation League showing that anti-Semitism is on the rise in America.
The ADL does document anti-Semitic incidents, and many of the incidents they document are genuinely anti-Semitic. For example, people being harassed for wearing kippot in public. But especially recently, a lot of the incidents that they've documented as anti-Semitic are...
That's what's so crazy about it, bro. Like, how do you betray your principle of actively logging, combating anti-Semitism by just like so overtly and so openly being like things that every Americans agree to and understand, virtually all Americans understand, that are also correct, by the way, like Israel doing a genocide is correct. Okay? Simply repeating that correct statement, being considered anti-Semitic, is psychotic. It's dangerous. You're giving credibility to anti-Semitic statements by directly associating correct statements that are shared by many Americans as though they are anti-Semitic. It is insane. Maybe because they kill babies? What? Yeah, okay, dude. This is what I mean. And then the outcome of that is people responding to that and being like, okay, well, they're saying, Jewish people are saying baby killing is a part of the business here. Jewish people keep saying Israel is the Jewish nation and everything Israel's doing is for Judaism. And then they fucking turn around and say shit like this. That's it. If you actively think that you are, dude, this is why I always make the ISIS comparison. It's like if there were American institutions designed, like American civil rights organizations designed to like protect Arabs and protect Muslims, running around and being like, ISIS is actually the true Islamic caliphate. It is an Islamic state. Why can't ISIS develop an Islamic state? If you criticize ISIS, you're actually Islamophobic. If they were doing that actively and you had fucking, Jake Tapper and the like regularly defending ISIS, Americans would be like, the fuck are you talking about? Okay, well, the Muslims are insane. And I'll explain it further because they falsely made that conflation. Media falsely made this conflation, claiming that ISIS was true Islam. This is the true nature of the barbaric Islamic hordes. They actively did that. Why did they do that? In an effort to justify the war on terror. Oh, it is fucking ridiculous.
Are actually just protests for Palestinian rights, including protests led and organized by American Jews.
What they do with their data is consistently conflate anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism, criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism, and that conflation.
Are they just dumb or are they just paid by Israel? Yes, of course the ADL is paid by Israel. What do you mean? He literally goes to the fucking Israeli Knesset and gives speeches about how the real war must be fought on the propaganda front and we must do more Hasbara in the West. Like, yes, this isn't even fucking dual loyalty tropes and shit, okay? This is straight up like out there. A lot of these organizations directly get grants from the Israeli Knesset. That's what's so crazy about it. They're not designated as foreign lobbyist organizations, weirdly enough. They'll always say like, oh, well, these are Israeli Americans, or these are Americans that are funding it. Well, the fucking Israeli government is funding it too. What do you mean it's not a fucking foreign organization? It's a foreign nation. The fuck are we doing? Sexy Sam Cedar, constructive criticism. You need to allow your beard to gray out. Wear a simple colored shirt. Wear clear colored glasses. Have shorter grayish hair. Thoughts. Okay, you want me to be Sam Cedar. I can never be Sam Cedar. I can try, but it won't happen. I will never be him. I wish I could be him, but I can't. There's only one Sam Cedar.
Gives them much wider room in order to weaponize that spear in a way that is really effective.
The anti-Israel groups on campus are planning a week of rage. I can't think of anything more grotesque.
Yeah, that was so funny. Yeah, dude, they were doing a day of jihad. Yeah. It's just crazy, man. Zionism truly is a mental disorder. I swear to God. I mean, it's a fascist ideology inherently. So it makes sense why it would also have the impact of like a real, genuine, existing mental disorder. Because no matter what your background is, okay, when you get drip fed unrestricted Zionist propaganda, you become this person who's like, yeah, they're going to do a day of jihad. You know? They're going to do a day of jihad. They're going to do a week of rage.
Than these pro-Hamas groups.
There's no question, of course, that there is a rise in anti-Semitism in the United States right now. But when you add every pro-Palestine rally that is taking place in the country, numbering over 1,000 events in their statistics as anti-Semitic incidents, we no longer know what the real statistics are. And when you add on top of that the fact that so much of the instances that they recount are confidential and they don't disclose any details about them, it is difficult for any outside party to really discern whether that data is accurate or not.
And by amplifying and uncritically reporting on the ADL's claims of what does and doesn't constitute anti-Semitism, the media is complicit in diverting attention from the real threats of anti-Semitism, from the anti-Semites in the cabinet of the Trump administration, and instead focusing it on 19-year-old activists who are being deported out of this country.
Those deportations of pro-Palestine activists and students have not begun. However, the chances of them happening increased exponentially after Donald Trump renewed an executive order from his first term to, quote, combat anti-Semitism and explore ways to expel pro-Palestine activists from the United States.
We've begun the process of deporting foreign terrorists, jihadists, and Hamas sympathizers.
The Trumpian political movement, which counts white supremacists and self-confessed, quote, Jew haters amongst some of its most ardent supporters, should be a clear point of focus for the ADL's critique. And in the early years of Trump's first term, that was the case.
While it's a bit...
Is the genuine rise in anti-Semitism because of the conflation between Israel and Judaism? Yes, that's one part of it, and a very big part of it, actually. Yes, absolutely. And Jonathan Greenblatt, Jake Tapper, Dana Fash, and many others are contributing to that problem by literally showing what Israel is doing and saying, well, there's contextualization and justifications for the baby murder that you're watching unfold in front of your fucking eyes. And also that if you have any sort of opinion on this baby murder being inappropriate, you're fucking anti-Semitic. What the fuck do you expect people to do after all that? You're like, okay, I guess I'm anti-Semitic. That's it. That's it. Bad Empanada says you are too. Oh, God. I think one of the worst parts about Bad Empanada doing any sort of commentary is that people don't understand his point. And then they come in here and repeat like the wrong point that he's making. Okay? This is the worst aspect of political commentary in this space is that you personally don't understand the point he's making, and you come in here and you bastardize the point that he's making, and you make all these other people who are in here misunderstand the point that he's making, and then there's like a lack of communication. I've said over and over again, Bad Empanada and I might have some marginal disagreements, okay? We play a different role, we fill a different void. I don't care. That doesn't change my attitude about him. That doesn't change my mind about him. And I'm pretty sure that he would be fucking very annoyed with a lot of you guys who watch his video, misunderstand it, and then come in here and repeat wrong points that he is not making. Okay? He isn't the first one and he didn't come up with the analysis that you contribute to Jewish supremacy / exceptionalism. I was. Okay, thanks, Hoochie Man. Okay, but what happened to you saying Bad Empanada is psychotic? He is. Can a psycho be listened to even if they have good political views? Yeah, I mean, he is. I separate the things that he says about political commentary from the things that he says outside of political commentary. Okay? And no. Doors open. Doors open. Doors open. Sorry. Anyway, let's continue.
It's a bit unclear what the president was trying to say in terms of who Jews are disloyal to. I will be exactly clear on what that was: anti-Semitism.
However, it was clear that the relationship between Trump and anti-Semites wasn't going to affect the one between...
You've been a coward regarding Palestine since you... Wait, you fucking... I missed it. Where is it? You've been a coward regarding Palestine since you condemned Hamas, and you've been tried to tuck it in since then. You talk about anti-Semitism more than Palestine. Yeah, dude, you are probably the most schizophrenic person I've ever encountered if you think that I talk more about anti-Semitism than I do about fucking Palestinian emancipation. That's insane. That is insane. I talk about a variety of different issues, and of course, as a political commentator in the West, who also does care about anti-Semitism and doesn't want it to fucking rise, yes, I will definitely talk about that as well. I don't know why you think that this is a metric. I don't know why you think these two things are at odds with one another. It's very stupid. There is point to a moment where I've ever entertained rising anti-Semitism as a reason to curb back on fucking pro-Palestinian sentiment, and maybe then we can have a conversation. That's it. This is why I'm saying a lot of people misunderstand the point that like Bad Empanada is fucking making and then come in here and yell, okay? That's it. Maybe you think it's a distraction. I don't. That's the difference, I guess. And as a matter of fact, they're not mutually exclusive. One definitely impacts the other, but perhaps not in the ways that you think I'm doing commentary over it. Like trying to push me into a box where you think I'm like entertaining liberal Zionism or I am a liberal Zionist or whatever is also pretty funny. You know, sorry that I'm not going to fucking do like Hamas sniping clip compilations, okay? Do I think that Hamas has a right to defend Palestinians as Israel is fucking invading and bombing Gaza? Abso-fucking-lutely. They have an internationally recognized right to defend itself and also a moral obligation to do so. This is something that I've mentioned a million times over. Having said that, you know, there's only so much I can do in terms of commentary. Maybe it doesn't fit your fucking insane, you know, maybe it doesn't. Maybe I'm not the right person for you as far as how much I lend support to the Palestinian emancipatory movement. Perhaps I occupy a different space than one that you would like. I also have a insane, rabid group of people that, despite my fucking very reasonable criticisms and very reasonable and dare I say restrained commentary, have spent the past fucking year of an ongoing genocide actively trying to get anyone and everyone they can to pull levers of power to fucking deplatform me. Suck my dick. You don't understand how this works, and it's fine. But no matter how hard you misunderstand Bad Empanada's position or come in here and fucking chirp, I'm still going to tell you that I don't have a disagreement in terms of the overall political perspectives demonstrated by the likes of Bad Empanada, or his work speaks for itself, especially when it comes to political commentary. Drama stuff is, you know, that's different.
Between Trump and the state of Israel, and particularly with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The ADL changed its tune.
Look, I'm optimistic about the Trump administration.
A key thing to understand about the ADL is that it has always had these two aspects of its mission, the fighting anti-Semitism aspect and the defending Israel aspect, although obviously it claims that they're one and the same. But over the years, the defending Israel aspect has both increased in priority and increased in the amount in which it conflicts with and actually undermines the other part of the ADL's mission.
The ADL decided that it's not just Palestinian advocates for a free Palestine who are the enemy. They've also decided that groups like Jewish Voice for Peace is the enemy as well.
So SJP, JVP, and CARE, these groups epitomize the radical left. We'll use our litigation skills to hold them accountable for their harm.
When you have progressive Jewish organizations like Jewish Voice for Peace, and If Not Now, and many others, standing up and saying, no, Israeli war crimes do not represent the American Jewish community or the world Jewish community, and insisting on standing in solidarity with Palestinians.
If not now, we want to welcome you here.
That undermines the narrative that the ADL is pushing, and that is precisely why they make a target out of progressive Jewish organizations.
Yeah, the highest priority target is obviously always going to be someone of Arab descent, someone of Palestinian descent, someone who is Muslim, who is an anti-Zionist, okay? Especially if they are also overtly against anti-Semitism. I, on certain aspects of my commentary, fit that bill perfectly, which is why I get criticized the most, because that, and also because I have one of the biggest platforms. The second highest priority target will always be, after these organizations are done chirping about every Arab or every Palestinian, every Muslim out there, is always going to be anti-Zionist Jews. Anti-Zionist Jews are also a high priority target for these organizations. And the reason for why they're a high priority target is because it undermines the argument that this is a unified front from all American Jews, and therefore you must take it seriously. They are a marginalized population in the United States of America. And therefore, when they say our actions, the actions of Israel are done for every Jew in America, and therefore criticizing the actions of Israel is inherently anti-Semitic, that kind of shit right there is directly undermined, especially in the minds of a lot of Americans, especially in the minds of a lot of people in the Western world who just look at that and go, what the fuck do you mean? Okay, these are Jews that are also protesting against genocide. Because in the Western world, we're not talking about Gaza, we're not talking about Palestine, but in the Western world, which, by the way, Israel would never be able to do the horrifying things that it does without Western government support. Okay, this is also a key part of the consideration for many of you who don't understand it. Israel would not exist in the ways that it does without American support. Okay, and in order to shake the unconditional loyalty that America has for its own fucking imperial vestige in the form of Israel's settler, colonial, apartheid, genocidal enterprise, okay, you have to convince people to join the cause. And many Americans see Jews putting their bodies on the line here in the United States of America against Israel, and it offers them a permission structure to break through the previously explained social conditioning. Okay?
Organizations.
The ADL has declared Jewish Voice for Peace to be anti-Semitic. Jewish Voice for Peace is an organization of at least 300,000 Jews. It has now said that the Jewish Voice for Peace is not really Jewish, that it's Arab propaganda. Now they're trying to actually discredit the Jewishness of Jews on the left.
Leftist Jews are anti-Semitic. Critics of Zionism, anti-Semitic. Pro-Palestinian symbols and chants, all anti-Semitic. In a world the ADL says is exploding with anti-Semitism, it was almost refreshing to hear the organization say what it doesn't deem anti-Semitic.
Thank you.
Elon Musk's repeated raised arm salutes, deployed just after Trump's swearing in, were taken by many as a symbol, designed to appeal to fascists and
I can affirm your assessment is a tactic we use. Yeah, of course. It's the same principle behind Doctors Without Borders as well. It's the same shit. It's the same principle behind World Central Kitchen as well. When you put members of the, like, citizens of the imperial core, or when you put Jews at the forefront of anti-Israel protests, yes, of course, people look at that and go, okay, what the fuck? Well, maybe television was lying to me about this being like a Jewish issue. Because it is a lie. That's the other side of this argument. That is a fucking lie. To say that this, like, everything Israel's doing is doing it for the international jury is a lie. It's ridiculous. It's an anti-Semitic lie. That's why I always yell about the fucking dual loyalty trope being demonstrated, but in a woke way, by fucking liberal media. Because that's what this is. It's like, no, this is dual loyalty, and you actually have to like it. Like, what?
And anti-Semites within the MAGA movement. The ADL was quick to tweet out a different interpretation, one considerably kinder to Musk.
Some context for the Musk incident, I think, is really important. Musk was at war with the ADL when he first took over Twitter. The ADL accused him of allowing anti-Semitism on Twitter, now X, to flourish.
When Elon Musk is amplifying these people, like, it's very problematic.
And the only thing that has changed since is that in an attempt to redeem his image, Elon Musk traveled to Israel, palled around with Benjamin Netanyahu, and decided to start amplifying anti-Palestinian and pro-Israel propaganda. And all of a sudden, the ADL no longer has a problem with Elon Musk.
Regardless of what the ADL's motivations were, the ADL's statement on Elon Musk's Hitler salute in many ways marks the completion of the ADL's trajectory from a civil rights organization to a willing enabler and partner in the current authoritarian anti-Semitic governing coalition. And it means that citing the ADL when we most need people to take anti-Semitism seriously is extremely reckless and irresponsible.
ICE detentions from 15 hours ago, last week tonight. I'm not going to watch this. Yeah, I saw the Paw Johns come out against ADL. I know. DC removed Black Lives Matter Plaza, not just painted over, it's being torn up. It's like, damn, dude. Please cover Sam Cedar, I beg of you. I'm going to, man. Calm down. There's a lot of fucking news to get to, chatters. Yes, I will watch Sam Cedar on Jubilee in a little bit. Oh my God, you guys are so fucking annoying. Patience, please. I said I was going to do it, and I will do it. It's literally pinned. He will watch Sam Cedar later. Please focus on the current news topics. Is the pinned fucking... This is why I always say, like, it doesn't matter how much I can, like, write it. I can have it, like, pop up with regular frequency on the stream, and people will still come in here and immediately be like, why aren't you covering the Sam Cedar Jubilee video immediately, please?
In D.C., city workers tearing up Black Lives Matter Plaza, permanently removing the massive BLM street mural that was...
I think this is a perfect demonstration of the fucking hollow, silly nature of this administration's actions. It's just like petty grievances being addressed in this way. Like, oh man, no, it's like it was a symbolic thing that the previous admin did. It was already performative. And now they're doing performative anti-wokeness. Liberals do performative wokeness. Republicans do performative anti-wokeness. Okay? Obviously, morally speaking, performative wokeness, given that it's a virtue signal, is still going to be better than performative anti-wokeness, which is vice signaling. But having said that, that's all this is. It's pure performance.
Painted outside on the street just...
It's like Nancy Pelosi kneeling with a kente cloth, and then these guys turning around and basically sig heiling. The only problem there, of course, is that when you're doing performative anti-wokeness and you're doing performative vice signaling, it has a very different impact than performative wokeness. Performative wokeness, for the most part, simply makes the person engaging in the act feel better, feel like they're morally righteous. Performative anti-wokeness, on the other hand, does have a tendency to normalize really dangerous and really violent rhetoric, really violent ideas, okay? Not saying that the destruction of the BLM Plaza is amplifying really dangerous and really really violent ideas. It's simply one aspect of this. I think that the aspect of this that is way more devastating is the actions being taken by the Trump administration. But that's all this is. It's just like, oh yeah, it's no different than telling Target they can't sell fucking I don't know, gay pride flags on Pride Month or whatever.
North of the White House. Griff Jenkins is on the plaza now, which is north of H Street, just north of Lafayette Square, right in front of the White House. It's about 300, 400 yards away, just to give everybody the lay of the land. What are you seeing out there right now, Griff? Yeah, John, good afternoon, and that's a good point. We are just steps from the White House. Actually, I'll just spin for just a second, Les. You can see, remember the St. John's Church, the center of the riots and protests of the BLM in the summer of 2020? Obviously, this here is where they erected this Black Lives Matter plaza and painted on the street. But as you mentioned, it's not just being painted over, John. It's being torn up. Let me show you. We've just watched hours of a jackhammer tearing up some bollards that lined the street. They had lights on them. This is where the word matter was. The next block, lives, and the next block, black. So these crews are out here actually tearing up the bollards to begin tearing the entire street up. It says it's going to take them days to do this because of...
How are people happy with the BLM Plaza thing? Even racist? What do you get out of it? They imagine that like black people are triggered by this, not realizing that black people by and large are probably not surprised by this at all. And that I mean, it just gives them more of an opportunity to be like, we own them, we triggered them, you know? Like, look at the glee demonstrated by Fox News for this otherwise like symbolic act of virtue signaling. They're like, oh, this is so sick. It's so dope. You didn't do shit. Okay. Oh my God. You destroyed this symbolic gesture that did not accompany any sort of serious, tangible legislative changes that were being made, demands being made by activists on the streets with mass protests. There's not really much to reverse because the liberals didn't do the actual tangible legislative changes. I think this call for the perspective of the largest commentator on the internet. What?
And so, and you can see, obviously, like there's a lot of people who are positive about this, right? Which is what's really important, right? I mean, whether this is happening or not doesn't really matter a whole lot to me. It's whether people are supporting it. And I think that people are supporting this in a mass amount, right? And so I think the reason why is that in the 2020 like BLM riots, there were a lot of people who were violent. They were looting stores. They were destroying property. They were not really protesting, right? These are violent, dangerous people doing this. And so because of that, average, everyday people don't want to live in a society where a group of people gets together and they burn down a building. This is true in every civilized country in the world. It's true in China. It's true in Russia. It's true in Europe. And it's true in, I don't know, like probably most places in South America too. Nobody wants to do that.
Not true in France.
So, yeah, not so out there. Just say blacks. Well, no, I don't think it's that simple. There's nothing, no group.
Yeah, dude, people are celebrating this because of, not because of white supremacist attitudes that they have, but because they were very upset about the ways in which black people were protesting. It wasn't just black people either. It was everybody protesting. Yeah. Let's not focus on the demands that were being made and whether or not they were reasonable. And let's focus on the ways in which some of the major protests out of like 90, I think it was like 95% that were not violent at all. They were mostly peaceful protests. And let's focus on the 5% that turned violent as a direct consequence of police brutality, considering that it was a police brutality protest. Of course, police being brutal created this kind of response. Anyway. Yeah, I doubt that he would have a similar, maybe he'd have a similar take on Confederate statues being removed. I don't know.
People has a monopoly on doing like crazy.
Yeah, I mean, in the direct aftermath of the first BLM protest, like 54% of Americans thought burning down the Minneapolis police precinct was justified after George Floyd's death. So he wasn't even, I mean, he's not even entirely correct on that. That was a really unique moment where, you know, you had like racist white Americans who were just like, yeah, that makes sense. That's crazy.
Crazy, stupid shit like this. I think it's very reductive to say, oh, it's black people doing this whenever you have white people doing it with Teslas as well. Like, we literally just got done watching a video of that. So this whole idea of like, this is some kind of like...
Yeah, I am more interested in trying to figure out why people are this angry and this resentful. There might be... If you were to look at that, maybe you would find out that there is good reason for them to feel this way, even just a thought, you know?
Like race thing, it's just a waste of time and it's not helping anybody.
Back in 2016, 2020, I wasn't a leftist and my take was they shouldn't target stores, they should target government buildings. Yeah. New declaration by Khalil's attorney says says she filed his habeas petition while he was still held in New York City, but that federal authorities moved him to New Jersey within around 12 hours of his Saturday night arrest and moved him to Louisiana by midday Sunday. Yeah, guys, any day now, the removal of like Black Lives Matter from Black Lives Matter Plaza is going to make egg prices plummet. Okay, I promise. Don't look at the Dow. It's gonna fucking flick back up, dude. NASDAQ watch down 4%. Guess what, dude? Right after this is turned into like White Lives Matter Plaza or whatever the fuck they want to do, I'm certain that this will turn around. We'll be going to the moon. Yeah, I saw Nick Mullins tweet. He said, I support Hamas and I will never go back to my home country of Aruba right on the beach at White House.
The amount of work, but they're ultimately going to return this entire 16th Street back to just a paved road. Nothing painted in here. No Black Lives Matter, just a two-way either way, the way it was before the mural. It comes as we're seeing D.C. also clearing out those homeless encampments, and of course the effort to bring the federal workers back to work as well, and cracking down on crime, all a part of what President Trump calls making D.C. great again. John, we'll send it back to you.
All right, Griff Jenkins for us on the formerly named Black Lives Matter Plaza. They've gotten a long way to the demolition so far. Griff, thank you.
They're making D.C. great again, sir.
President Trump's new tariff threat. He sparked fears over the economy as he declined to rule out the possibility of a recession. We'll get the latest from the markets. Senior political correspondent Rachel Scott starts us off from the White House. Good morning, Rachel.
George, good morning to you. And the president hasn't.
This is also why you hate liberals, because even what they accomplish is performative. Yes, because liberal accomplishments are not real accomplishments when there's like a need for tangible change. It's simply a way to tell you like, all right, shut the fuck up. We gave you something, you know, we kneel with the kente cloth. Like people are demanding very reasonable things to, for example, stop the disproportionate targeting and killing of black people in the hands of the police departments. That's perfectly valid. You know, that's perfectly valid. That's perfectly reasonable. And yet when the Democratic Party says, yeah, fuck off, we're not going to do that. And then they turn around and just kneel with the kente cloth. Okay. They're just doing, you know, like an optics distraction. To be like, what more do you want? We gave you what you wanted. My position on this is I don't give a fuck if they wrote Black Lives Matter on the ground at Black Lives Matter Plaza. If they had done anything, if they had accomplished any of the demands, like redistribution of funds in localities back to like social programs and social safety nets that actually tackle crime rather than the explosive budgets of the police department, or implementing some accountability measures against police departments that are routinely in violation of civil rights in the localities that they work in, and they never actually made Black Lives Matter Plaza, I'd be fucking happy. You know? I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit about them painting a fucking plaza. You know? Who cares? And I'm sure that many people would also agree with me on this. I guess maybe not liberals. Liberals would say, no, we want the performance. We don't want the actual legislative agenda to be fulfilled. To me, it's not that different than, you know, slapping BLM on the side of a cop car.
Insisted that Americans will be better off in the long run because of these tariffs, but he's also acknowledged there will be some economic pain. When asked directly if it could lead to a recession.
This video popped up for me. You're in the Thumbo, and it explains the dynamic perfectly. It's quite good. No way, no how. Why the far right is always worse than the far left. Is it from the perspective of a liberal? I kind of want to watch it now. It's a small content creator, but it's getting a little bit of interest. This is 2 weeks ago. It's got 7,223 subs, but it is a unique premise. One that I routinely talk about, but I would like to hear what he has to say. But we won't be doing that before. I won't be doing that before we actually watch Sam Cedar on The Jube.
Session, he declined to rule it out. This morning, after a week of shaky markets and tariff whiplash, President Trump is hesitant to rule out a recession in 2025.
I hate to predict things like that. There is a period of transition because...
Dude. This is kind of, I mean, if all Americans were just like completely, if all Americans did not suffer from the immediate impact of these sorts of financial downturns, I would laugh at the fact that, like, what, 70 million Americans voted for this guy specifically because they were like, that's what Brandon is doing. And then he turns around and he's like, yeah, it might happen. It might happen to you. Like, but because I am not a bloodless liberal, I can't sit here and enjoy the show. But it is kind of funny still. Like, these people that were like, we are voting for you to change the economy, sir, please, you are going to save us, are now sitting around and watching him go, the economy, what is the economy? I don't care. I don't care about the stock market. I don't care about the economy. Recessions are a normal part of the economic cycle. There's booms, there's busts. Sometimes it's booming, sometimes it's busting. I love to bust. I'm going to bust right now thinking about the word tariff. Tariffs are the best bust of all time. No one has busted as hard as I do when the tariff word comes up. That's right. They're already making excuses. Wait, what? The egg situation and the economy in general. We're out of eggs because the Dems killed all the chickens. Eggs coming soon. Still no eggs? What a failure. This response is so funny. God, boomer comics are great. I love boomer comics. That's right. I'm spitting on your face, but it's also raining. It's raining. It's raining. It's raining men. I love men. Men that look like they came right after. Men that look like they just came right out of central casting. Oh, I love men. Men, specifically Lloyd Webber. What a talent. What a talent. He uses men like men should be used. Phantom of the Opera. My favorite. It is my favorite. Handsome men.
Because what we're doing is very big. We're bringing wealth back to America.
But just days ago, the markets tumbled when Trump imposed a 25% tariff on goods from Canada and Mexico. The president quickly reversing course. Now Trump says he's planning for even more. A 25% tariff on all foreign steel and aluminum will take effect on Wednesday, and vowing to impose what he calls reciprocal tariffs on countries too.
April 2nd, it becomes all reciprocal. What they charge us, we charge them.
This morning, China's 10 to 15% retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods, including chicken, wheat, soybeans, and beef, now taking effect. Many economists warn the impact of tariffs will be passed down to consumers in the form of higher prices, but the president defending them.
Oh, I think the tariffs are going to be the greatest thing we've ever done as a country. It's going to make our country rich again.
The president also threatening hefty tariffs on Canadian dairy and lumber. The National Association of Home Builders says even a 25% tariff could increase the cost by $10,000 for a new single-family home. Dennis Woodruff owns a Maryland lumber yard and voted for Trump. He tells our Selena Wang his customers will pay the price.
I still support him. It's just going to be something all consumers have.
Dude, incredibly cucked. Levels of cuckening that I previously did not think could happen is happening right in front of our eyes, unfolding right in front of our eyes, chat. How amazing. Yeah, I'll still support him. He's single-handedly ruined my business, but I still support him. I'm sure he's doing it for some good reason. Fucking sick, dude. Holy moly. They're in love. Yeah. I trust the plan, sir. The deep state pedophiles are going to be killed any day now. That's right. It's not great, but it feels like the libs are being owned. It's making me feel like libs are being owned, and honestly, that's what matters here.
Have to pay
price.
I still support him. It's just going down.
The president has offered different reasons for the tariffs. His top economic advisor says it's all about forcing Canada and Mexico to crack down on fentanyl.
What happened was that we launched a drug war, not a trade war, and it was part of a negotiation to get Canada and Mexico to stop shipping fentanyl across our borders.
Less than 1% of fentanyl seized last year came from Canada. Mexico's president says they've seen a 40% drop at the beginning of the year. Democrats who have struggled to take on the president, blasting Trump's policies and trying to zero in on the economy.
They're destroying the economy, and they're making it harder and harder for Americans to afford things
That's where we need to keep the focus.
It will be a busy week here in Washington. The government is set to shut down on Friday unless lawmakers can reach a deal. House Republicans released their plan. House Democrats are opposed. It's unclear what Senate Democrats will do, but the president asked directly if there will be a shutdown. He didn't rule that out either, Robin.
All right. Our thanks to you, Rachel.
A massive sell-off on Wall Street tied to growing fears of a recession. The Dow Jones has fallen by 889 points, just over 2% of its value. The Nasdaq is down more than 4% as well. Let's get right to ABC's chief business correspondent, Rebecca Jarvis. And of course, the S&P is also down where so many of our retirement funds are.
That's right. The S&P 500 down about 2.7% today. That means from the high where it was just a couple of weeks ago, the S&P 500 is now down more than 5%. And what we're really seeing here on Wall Street is that the market has been rattled. It's been rattled by the idea of tariffs being on or off. It's very headline sensitive. Those on Wall Street are paying very close attention to what the administration says. We know tariffs, more tariffs are coming in April, and that has an impact on the market. It has an impact on how businesses plan. I've talked to a number of businesses who say we've had to set aside our plans for future growth, our plans for additional spending, any kind of additional hiring, because we have to figure out what to do about tariffs right here and now, whether we do business with Canada or Mexico or China. And of course, those tariffs mean that Americans ultimately pay a higher price. Once that product crosses the U.S. border, the company pays for it, the U.S. company pays for it, and then most of the time, U.S. consumers get past that additional increase. And businesses are having to think this whole thing through now of how they're going to pass those new higher prices off to consumers who are already wary about inflation. And one thing I also hear from a number of businesses is there isn't some short-term solution for them. They can't just say, oh, well, Mexico costs us more to do business with now, so we're going to move our production here to the United States. I've talked to businesses who've tried in the past to do manufacturing in the U.S. They just can't find the production. They can't find the factories here. They can't get their supplies here. So they really are facing a conundrum. And we've also heard it from the bigger companies like Best Buy and Target who say they will be rising their prices as well.
And Rebecca, this is also being blamed on fears of a recession. The president did not rule that out when asked about that over the weekend, that the tariffs could potentially put us in that territory. But the White House is downplaying that, saying we should be prepared for a transition period. How are economists and investors responding to that?
Well, we've already been in a slowing period as far as growth is concerned. Ever since the Federal Reserve started hiking interest rates to try to target inflation, the entire objective has been to slow this economy down. And so the economy has been slowing down. We just saw it in the jobs report on Friday, 151,000 jobs added for the month. That's not a bad report. It's just not as strong as things had been. And there's this real probability, this possibility now, and some economists are increasing the prospects of the potential for it, that there could be a recession, because if you have the business community spending more money, you have consumers who generate the growth in the economy. If we look at prices and say, well, they've just gotten too far out of reach, we then pull back as consumers, we spend less money, businesses hire fewer people, then that has an impact on jobs as well, and it becomes its own ripple effect. So all of those factors are now leading into what you're seeing in the markets. And you mentioned at the beginning, the Nasdaq tech stocks have been some of the biggest hit right now. And that's in part because the AI trade, which was so on fire for such a long period of time, has now really come under pressure because in part of competition from China.
All right, Rebecca Jarvis, thank you.
All right, we welcome to the show and a special interview with Mr. Elon Musk, who, of course, is famed Trump advisor, CEO of Tesla, SpaceX, chair of X Corp. Elon, thank you for doing this. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
I want to begin, but among other things, everyone's attacking you for your position. What are you doing in the government? There was a cyber attack on X today, which shut it down and may have been foreign sourced. Yes. It's a big story. You want to give us a moment on that?
Well, we're not sure exactly what happened, but there was a massive cyber attack to try to bring down the X system with IP addresses originating in the Ukraine area.
Oh, well, so that's your suspicion. Is the website is Ukraine is an enemy of the world?
Yeah, it definitely it's definitely Ukraine that did it. Yeah, Yeah, it was Zell Disney himself. Yeah, they love attacking. They love attacking the guy who's giving them fucking Starlink, dude. Like, this is just as stupid as being like, it was actually Russia that blew up its own pipeline.
Is the internet up? Is it up yet?
It's up, yeah.
It's up yet. Okay, good. But I just was looking back. Let me see if I get this right. They're setting fire to various Tesla charging stations near Boston. Shots were fired at a Tesla dealership in Oregon. Various nonviolent...
Shots fired, not a metaphor.
Shots fired, yes.
Damn, this guy's good.